Nari stepped forward, her voice steady despite her nerves. We also found 2 supplier delays that were blamed on staff but were actually caused by late approvals from Mr. Bike. 207. Documented? Yes, CEO. Good. Zaraya followed them into the conference room, where updated reports awaited. She read them carefully, making notes with a black pen. Haijin watched her with quiet tension. Nari looked like she was trying not to hold her breath. Zaraya did not rush. Approval meant more when it came after real review. Finally, she set the pen down. This is strong work, Haijin exhaled. Nari's shoulders dropped. Zaraya continued, Haijin, your leadership notes are improving. You are still too gentle in your deadlines. Haijin nodded quickly. I thought so too. Good. If you know the weakness, you can correct it. Nari, your audit structure is excellent. You are direct without being careless. Nari blinked, then bowed her head. Thank you, CEO. Zaraya leaned back. I'm making both positions permanent pending final HR filing. For a moment, neither woman moved. Then Haijin whispered, Permanent? Yes. Nari covered her mouth with one hand, eyes wide. Haijin stood abruptly, then seemed to remember where she was and bowed deeply. Kamsahamnida. Dapyonim. Silmangsikiji anjasubnida. Thank you, CEO. I won't disappoint you. Zaraya's gaze softened by the smallest degree. Do not promise never to disappoint me. That is unrealistic. Promise to correct quickly when you do. 208. Haijin looked up, tears shining. I promise. Nari bowed too, her voice thick with emotion. Gyoto yagzagogabnida, I promise too. Zaraya nodded. Good. The moment was quiet but important. Haijin had been interim for barely more than a day, but Zaraya did not need months to recognize direction. Some revealed themselves quickly under pressure. Haijin had chosen honesty. Nari had chosen courage. Both had chosen work over self-pity. That deserved structure around it before doubt could weaken what Zaraya had started. As the meeting ended, Haijin lingered behind. CEO Blackwood. Yes? My brother texted me yesterday. Zaraya looked at her calmly. Did he? Haijin nodded, cheeks warming slightly. He asked if you treated me well. A faint smile touched Zaraya's mouth. And what did you tell him that you did? Haijin hesitated. He said to earn the promotion. Wise. He sounds cold, but he worries. I assumed. Haijin's eyes widened slightly. You did? A man with that much power who allows his sister to work outside his direct control either does not care or cares enough to let her become herself while still watching from a distance. Your brother does not seem careless. Haijin stared at her, then smiled softly. That is exactly him. Zaraya said nothing, but the confirmation settled somewhere useful. 209. Haijin continued. People are talking about you meeting him. I imagine they are. I'm sorry if my grandmother caused trouble. Zaraya almost laughed. Your grandmother does not cause trouble accidentally. Haijin froze, then slowly smiled. No, she really doesn't. Do not worry about it. Haijin nodded. It's just, Yura may act strange. Zaraya's gaze sharpened. Hanyura? Haijin's smile faded. Yes. She has long loved my brother. He doesn't like her, but she doesn't accept it well. She can be mean in a polished way. How unfortunate. Haijin looked nervous. Please be careful. There was that word again. Careful. But from Haijin, it did not feel like control. It felt like a concern. So Zaraya accepted it differently. I will be aware, she said. Relief softened Haijin's face. Thank you. Awareness and fear are not the same thing. Haijin nodded slowly, absorbing that like a lesson. Zaraya left the headquarters shortly after, and the city felt brighter as she stepped outside. Not peaceful, but clear. Haijin and Nari were officially rising. The company was healing. The Blackwood name was strengthened in Korea not only through ownership, but through the loyalty of people who had been waiting to be respected. 210. Such loyalty lasted longer than fear, at least with the right people. Back at the villa, preparations for the cultural dinner began with the quiet intensity of a military operation disguised as fashion. Mrs. Han supervised wardrobe options while Camille delivered updated profiles on the guest list. Adrian reviewed security layout, exits, vehicle positioning, and what he called expected stupidity, which included Yura attempting another social performance, an old family elder making a subtle insult, or someone trying to separate Zaraya from her security. They won't separate me from security, Zaraya said as she stood in the dressing room. Adrian, standing near the doorway with his tablet, did not look up. They may attempt to make it seem impolite for me to remain close, then be impolite I always am, professionally, enthusiastically. Mrs. Han lifted a black gown from the wardrobe and examined it under the light. This one is too severe for tonight. Zoraya looked at it. Severe is often useful. Tonight, yes, but not immediately. Let them come close enough to realize the severity was waiting. Camille looked impressed. That is terrifyingly good styling advice. Mrs. Han gave a small bow. Thank you. They settled on a deep black gown with gold detailing along the back, elegant from the front and unforgettable from behind. It was formal enough for old families, respectful enough for the cultural setting, and dangerous enough to remind anyone watching that Zoraya did not arrive as decoration. Her long hair was styled in smooth waves. Gold. 211. Earrings framed her face. Her makeup was soft but precise, lips deep red, eyes defined, skin glowing. Her matte black nails remained untouched by softness, sharp and perfect. When she entered the hall, even Adrian paused. Zoraya lifted one brow. What? He recovered quickly. Nothing. Mrs. Han smiled faintly. He means you look appropriate. That is not what I meant, Adrian said. No, Mrs. Han agreed. But it is what I chose to translate. Zoraya laughed softly and accepted her black clutch from Camille. The drive to dinner took place under a darkening sky. Seoul glittered around them, alive with evening lights and the steady movement of a city that loved both speed and restraint. Zoraya sat in the back seat with her hands folded over her lap, calm as Adrian reviewed final updates. Han Yura arrived 15 minutes ago, he said. Of course, with 2 friends. Cowards enjoy witnesses. Chairman Park is present. Seo Mi-kyung is present. Several Baek family members. No confirmation on Kang Sun-hee or Min Jae. Zoraya looked out the window. He won't come early. Adrian glanced back. You sound certain I'm learning his habits. You met him once, twice if we count the call. We are still not counting unauthorized calls. 212. You're very committed to losing that argument. The event venue was a private cultural house tucked behind stone walls and old trees. It was more traditional than the places Zoraya had visited so far, with warm wood, tiled rooflines, paper lanterns, and a garden path lit by low golden lights. The air smelled faintly of pine and tea. It was beautiful in a way that demanded respect rather than admiration. Zoraya appreciated that. When she entered, conversation softened. Not stopped, softened. That was better. It meant her name had reached the room before she had. A hostess greeted her with a deep bow. Bulwargudo-si, wajuseoseo gamsahabnida. Miss Blackwood, thank you for coming. Zoraya bowed slightly. Kodahejuseoseo gamsahabnida. Thank you for inviting me. Adrian remained at a respectful but firm distance behind her. No one tried to tell him to leave. Smart. The dinner room was arranged with low floral displays, warm lighting, and round tables set with elegant Korean tableware. Guests wore formal attire, some modern, some traditional, all expensive. Zoraya recognized several faces from Camille's files. Chairman Park stood near a painted screen, speaking with an older man. Seo Mi-kyung sat at a table near the center, watching everything with calm amusement. Han Yura stood near the garden doors in a pale silver dress, her beauty polished so carefully it almost hid the tension in her jaw. Almost. Yura saw Zoraya. Her face changed. Not much. Enough. 213. Zoraya looked at her once. Just once? Yura's posture stiffened. Good. Before Yura could decide whether to approach. Seo Mi-kyung rose gracefully and crossed the room toward Zoraya. She was dressed in a dark plum hanbok-inspired gown. Her silver hair swept into an elegant knot. Her expression unreadable but not unfriendly. Miss Blackwood, Seo said in English. You've become the most discussed woman in Seoul? Zoraya smiled. How exhausting for Seoul. Seo laughed softly. And amusing for me. I believe that... Seo's eyes sparkled. Kang Sun-hee chose, well, choose? To invite you. Zoraya's smile sharpened. Careful, Mrs. Seo. That almost sounded like a different sentence. Seo's amusement deepened. You hear too much. I hear enough. A useful habit. For survival. For power, Seo corrected gently. Zoraya inclined her head. Also true. Chairman Park approached next, his smile polite and cold beneath the surface. Miss Blackwood, I was surprised to see your name on tonight's list. 214. Zoraya turned to him. Were you? This is a very private gathering, and yet here I am. His smile tightened. Indeed. Seo watched with interest. Park continued. Korea's old circles can be difficult to understand for newcomers. Zoraya's voice remained soft. Then it is fortunate I'm not easily confused. Confidence is admirable. So is subtlety, Zoraya replied. When used well, SEO nearly smiled into her glass. Park's eyes cooled. I hope you enjoy the evening. I intend to. He left, but the interaction had already done what it needed. People nearby had heard enough to understand that Zoraya would not be gently condescended to and smile like she had been complimented. Yura watched from near the garden doors, jealousy burning hotter now that Zoraya had survived the first old family jab without losing grace. When dinner began, seating proved exactly as intentional as expected. Zoraya was placed at a table with SEO Mikyung, Chairman Park, a Bayak Foundation elder Hanyura, and 2 cultural donors. Adrian stood along the wall with other security, though his presence remained closer than any of theirs. Zoraya noticed Yura's eyes flick once toward him, then away. Good. Let her understand the distance between fantasy and access. The first courses were served beautifully, each dish explained by the host in Korean. Zoraya listened carefully, eating with measured appreciation. When the host described 215, the history of one dish, she responded in Korean with a respectful comment about regional preservation and food as cultural memory. The table paused slightly. One of the older donors smiled. 한국 문화를 많이 공부하셨군요, she said. You've studied Korean culture a lot. Zoraya answered. 아직 배울 게 많지만 존중 없이 배우는 건 의미가 없다고 생각합니다. I still have much to learn, but I believe learning without respect has no meaning. The older woman looked genuinely pleased. Yura looked irritated. SEO looked entertained. Chairman Park looked like he wished Zoraya had made a mistake. She did not. For a while, dinner moved with polished restraint. People asked Zoraya about business, her properties, her language learning, and her move to Korea. She answered with just enough openness to appear gracious, never enough to appear available. She did not overshare about her family. She did not mention Coleman unless asked directly, and even then she framed the rebrand as a leadership correction, not a personal wound. Yura finally spoke during the 3rd course. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. Miss Blackwood, it must be difficult adjusting so quickly. Korea can be overwhelming for people who don't truly know it. The table quieted by a fraction. There it was, the first public scratch. Zoraya did not look at Yura immediately. She finished placing her chopsticks down, then lifted her eyes with calm precision. 216. It can be, Zoraya said. For people who arrive unprepared. Yura's smile tightened. Preparation is not the same as belonging. No, Zoraya agreed softly. Belonging is often decided by contribution, respect, and time. Not by how loudly someone insists they were here first. Seo lowered her gaze to hide her smile. One donor coughed lightly. Yura's cheeks warmed. I only meant some women mistake invitations for acceptance, Zoraya smiled. Not kindly. Then those women should learn the difference before embarrassing themselves in rooms with witnesses. The air froze. Yura's eyes flashed. Chairman Park leaned back, suddenly interested in his wine. SEO looked delighted. Yura's voice lowered. You speak boldly. Zoraya's black nails rested lightly against the edge of her glass. No, I responded accurately. Yura's fingers tightened around her napkin. Accuracy depends on perspective, does it? Zoraya tilted her head. From my perspective, a woman followed me yesterday, posted about me indirectly, deleted it, and now sits across from me pretending her jealousy is a cultural concern. The table went utterly silent. Yura went pale, not because Zoraya shouted, 217, because she did not. Zoraya's voice had remained soft, elegant, almost gentle. That made the exposure worse. She had not dragged Yura into the center of the room by force. She had simply opened the curtain and allowed everyone to see what was already standing there. Yura's lips parted. I don't know what you're talking about. Zoraya looked at her for a long moment. That look. The same look from the car, calm, cold, terrifyingly still. Yura stopped breathing correctly. Zoraya's voice lowered just enough that only the table could hear. Yes, you do. For 1 second, Yura saw beneath the silk. Not fully. Not enough to understand. But enough to know the woman across from her was not only a billionaire CEO, not only a foreign beauty, not only someone Kang Sunhee had invited to tea. There was something behind Zoraya's eyes that had nothing to do with social power. Something darker, older than business. Something capable of deciding violence without shaking. Yura's hand trembled. She hid it beneath the table. Zoraya saw anyway. Before the silence could stretch too far, Seomi Kyung lifted her glass. Miss Blackwood, I must say, your Korean is excellent. The shift was elegant, merciful, and deliberate. Zoraya looked at SEO and accepted the redirection. Thank you. Yura did not speak again for the rest of the course. 218. Across the room, unnoticed by most, Kang Min-ja had arrived. He stood near the entrance with one hand resting casually at his side. Dressed in black, no tie, white shirt open at the throat, tattoos visible at his neck and hands. He had not entered loudly. He did not need to. The room noticed him in waves, conversation dipping and posture adjusting as awareness spread. But his eyes were not on the room. They were on Zaraya's table. He had seen enough. The exposure. Yura's failed attack. Zaraya's calm response. The way fear crossed Yura's face after one look. The way Zaraya did not chase the kill after landing the blade. Restraint, precision. Mercy withheld but not wasted. Min-jae's expression did not change, but interest sharpened behind his eyes. Sun-hee was right. That was becoming increasingly inconvenient. When Zaraya finally sensed the shift in the room, she did not turn quickly. She already knew. The air had changed the same way it had at the estate, only now it carried the pressure of public awareness. She lifted her glass and took one slow sip before letting her gaze move toward the entrance. Kang Min-jae stood there. Their eyes met across the room. The noise around her seemed to thin, not disappear thin. He looked at her as if he had seen exactly what she had done and found it worth remembering. She looked back as if his arrival had not pleased her. 219. It had not. Not exactly, it had interested her. That was worse, Seo noticed. Of course she did. Yura noticed too, and the remaining color left her face. Chairman Park noticed and looked displeased. The dinner, already sharpened by Zaraya's presence, shifted into something more dangerous now that Min-jae had entered it. He crossed the room slowly, greeting the host, nodding to one elder, speaking briefly to Chairman Park, and then stopping beside Zaraya's table. Yura straightened instantly. Min-jae did not look at her. He looked at Zaraya. "Miss Blackwood," he said. "Mr. Kang." Seo smiled into her tea. Yura looked like she might crack. Min-jae's gaze moved briefly over the table, touching Yura only long enough to make her lower her eyes. Then he looked back at Zaraya. "Enjoying the evening?" Zaraya smiled faintly. It became more honest than expected. "I saw, did you?" 220. Yes. His voice was calm, but the word carried weight. Yura's humiliation deepened because she understood then that Min-jae had seen her lose. Not publicly enough for a scandal, but privately enough to matter. Zaraya leaned back slightly. "And what did you think?" The question was bold for the room. Min-jae's eyes held hers. "I think Han Yura should have stayed quiet." Yura flinched. Not dramatically, but enough. Zaraya's smile softened into something dangerous. "We agree again? That keeps happening? How unfortunate. For whom?" She lifted her glass slightly. "That remains to be seen." For the first time that evening, the corner of Min-jae's mouth shifted. Not quite a smile. Enough to make Yura look down like the sight physically hurt. Min-jae did not sit. He had his table, of course. But before he left, he spoke quietly, low enough that only Zaraya and those nearest could hear. "You handled that carefully." Zaraya's eyes narrowed with amusement. "Now I know you're provoking me." 221, I said carefully. "Not gently, better." He inclined his head slightly and moved away. The rest of the dinner unfolded beneath altered gravity. Yura stayed silent. Chairman Park tried twice to pull the conversation toward safer ground and failed both times because Seo kept circling back to Zaraya's business presence with questions sharp enough to force interesting answers. The Baek elder appeared genuinely impressed by Zaraya's cultural respect, which irritated Park further. Min-jae remained at another table, speaking little, but his presence affected the entire room. And once, during dessert, Zaraya felt his gaze before she saw it. When she looked up, he was already looking. Neither of them looked away immediately. That was a problem. After dinner, guests moved into the garden for tea and conversation. The night air was cool, the lanterns glowing softly along stone paths. Zaraya stepped outside with Camille briefly joining her to give updates, while Adrian positioned himself nearby. "Yura is leaving early," Camille murmured. "Good." She looked shaken. "She should... Did you mean to frighten her that much?" Zaraya's expression remained calm. "I meant for her to understand distance. And did she? For tonight?" Adrian looked toward the garden entrance. "Min-jae is approaching." 222. Camille immediately found somewhere else to be. Zaraya did not turn until Min-jae stopped beside her near the stone railing. For a moment they stood looking out at the garden rather than at each other. Lantern light softened the tree's edges. Water moved quietly somewhere nearby. The air smelled faintly of pine, tea, and expensive perfume. "You arrived late," Zariah said. "I arrived when necessary." How dramatic, how accurate. She smiled faintly. "You missed the beginning. I saw enough. Yura?" "Yes." "She embarrasses easily." "She should not have tested you." "No," Zariah said. "She should not have." Minjae looked at her then. Up close, the tattoos at his throat and hands were more visible, the rose near his neck dark against his skin. He looked controlled, but not cold. There was intelligence in his stillness. Violence, too, but disciplined. The kind that made men afraid before they understood why. "You frightened her," he said. I looked at her. That was enough. Zariah turned slightly. "Do you disapprove?" "No." 223. "Do you approve?" His gaze held hers. "I understand." That answer settled between them more heavily than either approval or disapproval would have. Zariah studied him. Most men would have told me to ignore her. Most men enjoy giving useless advice. And you? I prefer not to waste words. Debatable. His eyes shifted faintly, amusement again. "You say that often. You earn it often." The quiet between them changed. Not soft. Never soft. But less guarded for one breath, like two people briefly acknowledging that their weapons were still present but not drawn. Minjae spoke first. "The gala invitation arrives tomorrow." Zariah looked back toward the garden. "I expected that you should attend, should—" "Yes. Careful, Mr. Kang." His mouth almost curved. "You enjoy that word now. I enjoy returning it. The gala will not be like tonight, no?" 224. "No. Tonight they tested whether you could be provoked. Tomorrow they will decide whether to welcome you publicly." "And if I don't want to be welcomed?" "Then attend anyway." Zariah turned her head toward him. "You are dangerously close to giving orders." Minjae's gaze lowered briefly to her black nails, then lifted back to her face. "If I gave you an order, Miss Blackwood, you would know." Something in the air tightened. Zariah smiled slowly. "Would I obey?"
Bro.
"No." The answer came instantly. Correctly. It pleased her. "You're learning," she said. "So are you." Before she could answer, Adrian stepped a little closer. Not interrupting, reminding. Minjae noticed without looking irritated. "I should leave," Zariah said. Minjae nodded once. "You made your point tonight." "I made several, yes. And which one did you notice?" He looked at her for a long moment. 225. "The one where you stopped before destroying her, that gave her pause. Not because he was wrong, because he had seen the restraint beneath the threat." Zariah's voice lowered. "Maybe she wasn't worth destroying." "No," he said. "But you wanted her to know you could—" Silence. Zariah's smile faded into something more honest. "Careful," she whispered. This time the word carried a warning. Minjae's eyes darkened slightly. "Good night, Miss Blackwood." "Good night, Mr. Kang." He walked away first. Not because he won, because the conversation had reached a place neither of them intended to continue in public. Zariah watched him go only long enough to be respectful to her own curiosity, then turned toward Adrian. "Do not say it," she warned. Adrian looked offended. I was going to say several things. Keep them. 226. I will not enjoy keeping them. I know." The ride back to the villa was quiet, but Zariah's mind remained active. The dinner had revealed more than expected. Yura was reckless but not brave. SEO was amused and possibly useful. Chairman Park disliked Zariah's composure, which meant he would eventually make a mistake. Someone stronger had likely influenced the Beak Foundation. Minjae arrived late, watched enough, and spoke with the ease of a man who did not mind letting others show themselves before he moved. And tomorrow the gala invitation will arrive, day 10. First major public stage since her arrival. At the villa, Mrs. Han waited with tea. She looked at Zariah and said, "Someone behaved foolishly." "Hanyura," Mrs. Han sighed softly. "Expected. She learned something. Enough for tonight." Mrs. Han placed the tea on the desk. "Then tomorrow we'll test whether she remembers." Zariah removed her earring slowly. "She won't know," Mrs. Han said. "Women like that rarely do." Later, alone in her office, Zariah opened her notebook and wrote, Day 9. Hyjin and Nari are permanent. Cultural dinner revealed Yura's weakness. SEO enjoys the disruption. Park dislikes me. Min-jae arrived late and watched enough. He sees restraint too clearly. Gala invitation expected tomorrow. 227. Then added, Yura is not the real problem. She is the noise before one. Soraya closed the notebook and looked at Seoul. The city glittered beneath the dark sky, beautiful and layered, half hers in ink and ownership, half his in silence and fear. Somewhere out there, Han Yura was nursing humiliation. Somewhere out there, old families were deciding how to present their next test. Somewhere out there, Kang Min-jae understood too much. Soraya lifted her tea, her black nails sharp against the porcelain. Tomorrow, the gala will open next door, and this time all of Seoul would be invited to watch who stepped through it. 228. Chapter 12, The Gala. Invitation. By the 10th morning in Korea, Soraya Blackwood no longer felt like she had arrived in Seoul. She felt Seoul had finally arrived at her door. The villa was quiet when she woke, but the quiet had changed. It no longer felt like the soft, private silence of a house built above the city. It felt watchful, like every polished floor, glass wall, guarded gate, and red rose arrangement knew something was coming before anyone had spoken it aloud. Dawn spread pale gold across the skyline, touching Seoul's towers one by one, turning windows into flashes of light. Below, the city began its disciplined movement. Cars slipping onto roads, cafes opening, office lights blinking awake. People stepping into another day without knowing the private world above them had already begun shifting around one woman's name. Soraya stood in her bedroom before the glass wall, barefoot, wrapped in a black silk robe, her long dark hair loose down her back. Her deep chocolate skin glowed softly in the morning light, and her matte black stiletto nails rested against the warm porcelain cup in her hand. She had slept but lightly, not because she was afraid of the gala invitation she knew would come today, but because expectation had its own pulse. She could feel it beneath her calm, a quiet awareness that day 10 mattered. 10 full days in Korea. 10 days after she had left America, dropped her old phone into the trash, and boarded a private jet as Soraya Blackwood, not Soraya Coleman. 10 days since the Coleman family lost the daughter they never valued and the financial foundation they never thanked. 229. 10 days since Seoul had begun learning her name through business circles, staff loyalty, old family whispers, jealous women, and one dangerous man whose presence had begun moving closer whether she invited him or not. Kang Min-jae. She thought of him briefly, then deliberately moved her attention away. That was becoming necessary. A man like him was not something to think about without purpose. He was too controlled, too observant, too willing to meet her sharpness without flinching. The cultural dinner had confirmed what the Kang estate tea room suggested. He did not see her as a decoration, a foreign investor, or another wealthy woman his grandmother found amusing. He saw danger under her grace. Worse, he understood the restraint. That was inconvenient. Soraya did not like being understood too quickly, especially by men who looked like warnings and spoke like locked doors. A soft knock sounded at her bedroom door before Mrs. Han entered with a breakfast tray and the morning paper. She bowed respectfully, her expression calm but alert. "Johun asimibnida, bulregudusi," Mrs. Han said. "Good morning, Miss Blackwood?" Soraya turned from the window. "Johun asimeo. Hanyo sanim." "Good morning, Mrs. Han." Mrs. Han set the tray on the small table near the sitting area. "You slept? Enough." Mrs. Han gave her the same look she always gave when Soraya used that word. Soraya smiled faintly. "Do not start." 230. I said nothing. "You said it with your face." Mrs. Han's lips curved. "Then I will discipline my face." "You won't." "No," Mrs. Han admitted. "Probably not." The small exchange softened the morning, but only briefly. Soraya walked to the tray and noticed immediately that the paper had been folded to the business section. Her name appeared in a short column near the center. Blackwood Global Holdings expands stability efforts across American division. Soraya sat and read the article without emotion. Nadine Ellis had moved quickly. The former Coleman Company was no longer described as a scandal in progress, but as a company undergoing decisive restructuring after leadership instability. Employees were being protected. Vendors were resuming talks. Investors had responded positively to Blackwood authority. The article did not mention Marcus Coleman kindly. It did not mention her mother at all. Her father appeared only as part of former family leadership removed from Access former. Such a useful word. Mrs. Han poured tea beside her. "The American division is recovering." "Yes. And your family?" Soraya turned the page. "They are not." Mrs. Han said nothing for a moment. Soraya looked up. 231. The older woman's expression was thoughtful, not pitiful. Sometimes people think losing access is punishment, but often it only reveals how little they built for themselves. Zoraya placed the paper down. That is exactly what is happening. Will they find work? Not easily. Mrs. Han's gaze sharpened slightly, but she did not look surprised. Zoraya continued, calm as morning glass. In America, almost every important road they might take leads back to me in some way. Ownership, debt, investment, private partnerships, board relationships, real estate, suppliers, even people who owe favors they would rather not admit. I do not need to call and block them. My name will do the work quietly. Mrs. Han nodded once. Then they are learning the size of the woman they reduced. Zoraya's fingers stilled around her tea. The words landed somewhere beneath her ribs, not painfully, but precisely. The size of the woman they reduced. Yes, that was the truth of it. Her family had not merely underestimated her. They had tried to make her smaller so her brother could look larger. They had folded her into silence, into usefulness, into the corner of rooms, into the background of their family story. Now, with the Coleman name stripped from the company and their access severed, they were discovering that the woman they shrank inside the family had been vast everywhere else. Zoraya lifted her tea. They will adjust, or they will resent you. 232. They already did that when I helped them. Mrs. Han lowered her gaze with quiet agreement. By the time Zoraya entered the garden room for her formal breakfast, Camille and Adrian were already waiting. Camille looked polished, alert, and slightly overworked. Adrian looked like he had already found 5 things to dislike about the day and was prepared to discover more. Zoraya sat at the head of the table. Updates. Camille opened her tablet. The American division is stable enough for Nadine to hold the first staff-to-wide town hall tomorrow. She wants a recorded message from you. No. Camille paused. No. Not yet. Let Nadine lead. The employees need to trust the person managing them day to day, not look across the ocean every time they feel uncertain. Camille nodded. That makes sense. Send her my approval for the town hall and a written statement she can read if necessary. Short. No sentimentality. Understood. Adrian looked up from his phone. Your mother tried to reach Nadine directly. Zoraya's expression did not shift. And Nadine's assistant declined the call. Good. Marcus attempted to enter the building again. Zoraya lifted one brow. Again, 233, security denied him. He argued in the lobby for 6 minutes, then left when someone recorded him. Camille winced. That video may circulate. Let it, Zoraya said. Adrian's mouth curved slightly. I thought you'd say that he needs witnesses more than sympathy. Camille glanced at another update. Also, Hanyura has not posted again, because she is embarrassed, or because Minjae's people warned her, Adrian said. Both. Mrs. Han entered with fresh tea just as the villa's front security line called through the household system. A low tone sounded once, discreet but unmistakable. Mrs. Han touched the small receiver at her wrist, listened, then looked toward Zoraya. An envelope has arrived at the lower gate. The table went quiet. Camille lowered her tablet. Adrian's eyes sharpened. Sender? Mrs. Han listened again. The courier says, it is from the Hanul Arts Foundation. Camille glanced at Zoraya. That's the gala. Zoraya slowly set down her cup. Scan it. It's already happening, Mrs. Han said. 234. Adrian looked at her. Mrs. Han did not look back. I learn quickly. Zoraya smiled faintly. Yes, you do. 10 minutes later, the envelope was brought into the garden room on a silver tray. It was ivory, larger than the cultural dinner invitation, and far more ornate. The paper was thick enough to feel almost ceremonial, with gold edging and a deep red wax seal stamped with the emblem of the Hanul Arts Foundation, a crane rising through a circle of clouds. Zoraya's name appeared in elegant Korean calligraphy, then English beneath it. Jaria Burugudeanim, Miss Zoraya Blackwood Zoraya, opened it with the tip of one black nail. Inside was a formal invitation written in Korean on one side and English on the other. The gala would be held in 3 nights at one of Seoul's most prestigious cultural venues. Attendance was limited to major donors, elite families, foreign dignitaries, private investors, cultural leaders, and select business figures. The purpose was cultural preservation, scholarship funding, and international arts partnership. The real purpose, of course, was power-wearing evening wear. At the bottom, beneath the printed text, was one handwritten sentence. It should see those who shape a city. Zoraya read it slowly. Camille leaned closer. That sounds almost like a public acknowledgement. It is, Mrs. Hahn said softly. Adrian's jaw tightened. Or bait, 235. It can be both, Zoraya replied. Mrs. Hahn's gaze rested on the handwritten line. This invitation places you publicly among Seoul's highest circles, not as an observer. As someone being recognized. Camille scrolled through the event file. The gala happens after your 10th full day in Korea, just like we expected. Zoraya looked at the invitation again. Day 10. Recognized. Seen. Measured. Welcome, perhaps. Tested, certainly. She smiled faintly. They waited long enough to see whether I would make noise before giving me a stage. Adrian looked at her. You did make noise. No, Zoraya said. Other people made noise about me. I moved. Mrs. Hahn's eyes warmed with approval. Camille kept reading. Dress code, formal black tie. The seating chart is not included. No +1 listed. Security protocols are strict, but personal protection details are allowed for high-profile guests, meaning Adrian comes in. Adrian's expression said he had already intended to regardless of their rules. Yes, 236. Zoraya returned the invitation again. Who else will be there? Camille's fingers moved fast across the tablet. Kang Sun-hee confirmed, Chairman Park confirmed, Seo Mi-kyung confirmed. Hanyura likely attended through her family's donation circle. Kang Hae-jin is not on the formal list. Good, Zoraya said. Adrian looked up. Good. Hae-jin does not need to be dragged into a room full of people measuring her brother's reaction to me. Camille nodded. Kang Min-jae is not confirmed. Zoraya smiled faintly. Of course not, Mrs. Han spoke quietly. He may not confirm until the last moment. He enjoys timing, Zoraya said. Adrian muttered. He enjoys being irritating. Also true. The invitation remained on the table between them like an open door. Not the first door. Not the most dangerous. But the most public so far. The cultural dinner had been private enough for insults to remain contained. Sun-hee had controlled the Kang estate. The beauty headquarters belonged to Zoraya. The gala would be different. It would be a room where many interests overlapped at once. Old families, jealous women, donors, power brokers, businessmen, cultural leaders, and possibly the most feared man in Korea standing somewhere beneath the same lights. A room like that did not simply reveal people. It exposed alliances. Zoraya picked up the response card. Accept 237. Camille nodded. Immediately? Yes, Adrian sighed. Of course, Zoraya looked at him. You object? Constantly, and yet I will secure the venue, map exits, vet staff, monitor Yura, watch Kang Min-jae, and probably hate every minute of it. Good. Everyone should have hobbies. Mrs. Han quietly coughed into her hand to hide amusement. The acceptance was sent within minutes. By noon, Zoraya's attendants had begun moving through private channels. 1. Business offices knew. By 2, Hae-jin knew because her grandmother mentioned it during a call, and then pretended she had not done so intentionally. By 3, Hanyura knew and cracked the stem of the wine glass she was holding. And by 4, Kang Min-jae knew because he had been informed before most people even finished reading the invitation list. He stood in his private office overlooking Seoul, dressed in a black suit with his white shirt open at the collar, tattoos visible at his hands and throat. The rose tattoo at his neck sat partly beneath shadow, dark and striking against his skin. A report on the gala rested on his desk, along with the updated guest list. Zoraya Blackwood's name had been highlighted by his staff, though no one in his office would admit to doing it unless asked directly. Min-jae read the handwritten line copied from her invitation. 238. It should see those who shape a city. His expression did not change. His grandmother, almost certainly. Sun-hee had a gift for pushing people while pretending she had merely opened a door nearby. She wanted Zoraya to be seen publicly, not simply introduced. Seen. That meant she had decided Zoraya's presence could no longer remain in private rooms and whispered reports. She wanted the old families to look at her properly, and perhaps she wanted Min-jae to look too. He already had. That was the complication. His temporary secretary stood near the desk, cautious and silent. Since Sora's reassignment, his office had become quieter, more disciplined. Fewer emotional mistakes, fewer trembling pauses. He preferred it that way. Will you attend, sir? The secretary asked carefully. Min-jae looked at the guest list again. Yura's name appeared under her family's donor table. His eyes cooled. Has Yura been contacted? Yes, sir. Your instruction was delivered through her father's office, and she has been advised not to approach Miss Blackwood. Advised? Min-jae repeated softly. 239. The secretary lowered his gaze. Strongly. Min-jae looked around town. Yura was becoming an irritation, but irritation could become danger when pride was wounded enough. She'd already followed Zaraya once. She had already tried social insults and lost. If she humiliated herself at the gala, that was her problem. If she created a scene near Zaraya, it would become his because the mess had begun through his orbit. He disliked cleaning the mess created by people who should have known better. Put 2 additional watchers on her, he said. Yes, sir, and Sora. No contact with Yura has been detected since reassignment. Keep watching. Yes, sir. After the secretary left, Min-jae picked up his phone. He did not call Zaraya. He considered it for 1 second, which was already too long. Then he set the phone down. Across the city, Zaraya spent the afternoon inside her real estate office, reviewing security and movement routes for the gala venue. She did not ask whether Min-jae would attend. She would not. Asking would make his presence seem necessary, and it was not. Interesting, yes. Useful, possibly. Necessary, never. The venue was old, prestigious, and not fully modernized in ways Adrian hated immediately. Too many side corridors, he said, studying the digital floor plan. 240. Zaraya looked over the map. Useful, dangerous. Both Miss Blackwood, she glanced at him. Adrian, he tapped the screen. Main ballroom here, private donor lounge here, garden terrace here, service corridor behind the stage, staff access from the east, guest arrival through the front hall. If anyone wants to create a scene, they do it near the terrace or donor lounge. Yura? Likely terrace. More privacy, enough witnesses, an easy dramatic exit. Camille looked impressed. You think like a jealous woman. Adrian gave her a flat look. I think like someone who has protected rich people from jealous women. Zaraya smiled faintly. That may be the same thing. Camille pulled the guest risk list. Chairman Park may attempt another polite insult. SEO will likely engage you in conversation. Kang Sun-hee may bring attention to you publicly. Yura may try to provoke you. Sora may not attend due to reassignment. And Min-jae? Camille paused. Unknown. Zaraya leaned back. Then leave him unknown. Adrian studied her. She saw it. What? 241. Nothing. Adrian, you are working very hard not to seem curious. I am not working hard. That is the part that concerns me. Zaraya's mouth curved slightly. Focus on the floor plan. Yes, ma'am. As the day continued, the gala began reshaping everything around it. Sent wardrobe options. Mrs. Han reviewed etiquette notes and guest information. Camille coordinated schedule changes for the next 3 days. Adrian's team began vetting staff lists, driver routes, and possible weak points around the venue. Zaraya approved everything that mattered and ignored everything that smelled like nervous over-preparation. A gala was not a battlefield. Not officially. But battlefields rarely admitted what they were until someone bled. That evening, Hai-jin called Zaraya directly for the first time. Not through the internal company system. Not through Camille. Directly. Zaraya noticed the number, recognized it, and answered from her office. Hai-jin? There was a startled silence. CEO Blackwood? You called me. 242. Hai-jin inhaled. My grandmother told me you're attending the gala. I know it's not my place, but I wanted to say. Hai-jin paused, choosing her words. Those rooms can be strange. People smile a lot, but not always kindly. Zaraya leaned back in her chair, her black nails resting against the phone. I know. Yura may be there. I know that too. She can be cruel when she feels embarrassed. Hai-jin, yes? Are you warning me because you're afraid for me or because you're afraid of what I'll do? A long pause followed. Then Hai-jin said softly both. Zaraya smiled. Honest girl. Good. I won't create a scene unless someone earns one. That's what I'm afraid of, Hai-jin whispered. Do you care about her? 243. No. I care about you. Hai-jin seemed to understand what she said and rushed to explain. I know you can handle yourself. Everyone knows that. But I don't want your first gala to become ugly because of someone like her. For a moment, Zaraya did not respond. I care about you. So simply said. So easily given. Hai-jin did not know how rare that felt to a woman who had been needed far more often than cared for. The girl was becoming dangerously loyal, and Zaraya knew loyalty came with responsibility. If Hai-jin cared, Zaraya could not treat that as a small thing. My first gala will become whatever I decide it becomes, Zaraya said gently. Do not worry, I'll try. That was not convincing. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing for your concern. Another pause. Then Hai-jin laughed softly. Yes, CEO. And Hai-jin? Yes, thank you. The silence on the other end changed. Hai-jin's voice was softer when she answered. 244. After the call ended, Zaraya sat still for a moment looking at the phone. Adrian stood near the door pretending not to have listened. He failed. She likes you, he said. Yes. That complicates things. Care usually does. She is Min-jae's sister. I know, and you care back. Zaraya looked at him. Adrian lifted both hands slightly. Professionally, that was wise. I learned quickly, too. Zaraya almost laughed. Night settled over Seoul with soft rain. Not a storm, just a light, elegant rain that blurred the city lights against the glass and made the villa feel even more removed from the world below. Zaraya stood in her office long after Camille retired for the night. The gala invitation lay open on her desk beside her notebook. Mrs. Han had placed a red rose near it, not touching, just close enough to make the paper look even more deliberate. Zaraya opened her notebook and began writing Day 10 notes. Day 10. Gala invitation arrived. Wording suggests public recognition and public tests. King Sunhee is likely involved. Hai-jin called directly. Concerned about Yura and the gala. American division stabilizing. Coleman family blocked. 245. From employment paths connected to Blackwood influence. Min-jae is not confirmed for the gala, unknown by choice. She paused. Rain streaked down the glass. Then she added, Seoul wants to see me. Let it. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She watched it for a second before responding. Mr. Kang, she said. Silence. Then his voice low and calm. You assumed correctly. Zaraya leaned back in her chair. You call from unknown numbers and expect mystery. I recognize patterns. You accepted the gala invitation. You knew I would, yes. Careful. That almost sounded like a guess. It was not. Her smile curved slowly. Then what was it? Understanding. The word entered the room like a quiet challenge. 246. Zaraya's nails tapped once against the desk. You believe you understand me? No. Good. I understand enough to know you would not reject a room trying to measure you. That is not understanding. That is observation. Observation is where understanding begins. She looked at the rain-slicked skyline. You sound like your grandmother tonight. She would take that as a compliment. Would you? No. Zaraya laughed softly before she could stop herself. The line went quiet, not awkwardly, attentively. Min-jae heard it. She knew he did. What do you want? She asked. To tell you Yura has been warned. How thoughtful. It was not for you. No? 247. It was for her. Merciful. Practical. Zaraya smiled faintly. You both rename things beautifully. She will be at the gala. I know. Do not let her pull you into a spectacle. Zaraya's expression cooled. Do not tell me what to do. A brief silence. Then Min-jae said, Then hear it differently. I'm listening. She wants a scene because the scene gives her importance she has not earned. Deny her that unless she becomes impossible to ignore. Zaraya's irritation softened into interest. That was not an order. It was a strategy. Better. Now that, she said, was useful. I thought you might prefer something useful. I prefer many things, he said quietly. Control among them. 248. Her eyes narrowed slightly, though he could not see it. You say that as if you don't. I do. At least we're both honest about our flaws. Control is not a flaw. No, she said. But needing it can become one. The silence that followed was longer this time. When Min-jae spoke again, his voice had shifted, still calm, but lower. Do you need it? Zaraya watched her reflection in the glass. Dark hair, black silk, gold light. The city reigns behind her. A woman shaped by abandonment, sharpened by power, and watched by a man who noticed too much. No, she said softly. I mastered it. For a moment, the line carried only silence. Then Min-jae said, I believe you. It was a simple sentence. It landed deeper than it should have. Zoraya did not like that. "Will you attend the gala?" she asked before deciding not to ask. A mistake. Small, but hers. Min-jae noticed. 249. She knew he noticed because the silence changed. "I haven't decided," he said. Zoraya smiled slowly, regaining ground she had given too easily. "Then decide carefully. Now you're giving me my word back again. You use it often enough to share." This time, she heard the faintest hint of amusement in his breath. "If I attend," he said, "you'll know. I imagine the room will tell me before you do." "Yes." Dramatic. Accurate. A pause. Then he said, "Good night, Miss Blackwood." "Good night, Mr. Kang." The call ended. Zoraya lowered the phone slowly. The office seemed quieter afterward, but not empty. The rain continued tracing silver lines down the glass. Seoul glowed beneath it, blurred and beautiful, waiting. Adrian appeared at the doorway seconds later, because of course he had been nearby. "You asked if he was attending," he said. 250. Zoraya did not turn. "You were listening, I was protecting, through a door?" Emotionally, that made her look at him. He stared back. Then she laughed softly. Adrian looked relieved for half a second, then suspicious of his own relief. Zoraya placed the phone on the desk. "He may attend?" "He will attend." "You sound certain." "He called to tell you he hadn't decided. Men like that don't call to announce uncertainty unless the decision is already leaning yes." Zoraya studied him. That was perceptive. "I am excellent at my job, occasionally, constantly." She smiled and looked back toward the rain. The gala invitation waited on her desk. The city waited beyond the glass. Hanyura waited in jealousy. Kang Sunhee waited with strategy. Haijin waited with concern. Old families waited with judgment. And Kang Min-jae waited behind the word undecided, as if his silence itself had not already entered the room before him. 251. Zoraya lifted the gala invitation and read the handwritten line again. "It should see those who shape a city." She set it down carefully. Then she looked out at Seoul. "Then let them see," she whispered, because the gala was no longer just an invitation. It was a declaration. And Zoraya Blackwood had never been afraid of being seen by people who should have been afraid to look too long. 252. Chapter 13. 252. Zoraya Blackwood understood that power did not always arrive as a crown. Sometimes it arrived as a quiet signature at the bottom of a lease agreement. Sometimes it arrived as a locked door being opened for the first time. Sometimes it arrived as an unanswered apology text glowing on a phone screen while the woman receiving it drank tea in a villa above Seoul and felt absolutely nothing strong enough to make her respond. The rain from the night before had washed the city clean, leaving Seoul bright and sharp beneath a pale morning sky. From the glass wall of Zoraya's office, the skyline looked almost freshly polished, towers rising in silver and blue, while traffic moved in disciplined streams far below. The gala invitation remained on her desk, ivory paper edged in gold, its handwritten lines still visible beneath the morning light. It should see those who shape a city. Zoraya had read it enough times to understand the invitation for what it was. Not kindness, not simple recognition, a stage. The Hanyul Arts Foundation Gala would be the first major public room in Korea where all eyes could turn toward her at once. Old families, donors, business leaders, cultural figures, quiet criminals dressed as philanthropists, and people who had smiled at her name without yet deciding whether they feared it. They wanted to see her, to measure her, to decide whether she was only another wealthy foreign woman entering their country with money and beauty, or something heavier. They would learn. But not today. Today, Zoraya had other doors to open. 253. She sat behind her black desk in a fitted cream dress, her long dark hair flowing over one shoulder, her deep chocolate skin glowing beneath the office lights. Her matte black stiletto nails rested against a new proposal folder, while Camille stood across from her with a tablet in hand. Adrian leaned against the wall near the door, watching the room with the quiet suspicion of a man who believed even paperwork could become dangerous if Zoraya smiled at it too long. Mrs. Han placed tea beside Zoraya and glanced at the folder. "The new property?" Zoraya turned a page. "Yes!" Camille brought the images to the wall screen. A sleek building appeared, 3 stories tall, modern but warm, sitting in a high-value district where luxury foot traffic met younger nightlife energy. It had wide windows, a roof level and lower floor that had previously been used for private events. The outside looked elegant enough for public branding. The inside, according to the floor plan, had bones strong enough for something more layered. A beauty lounge? Camille asked. More than that, Zariah said. A luxury wellness and fragrance house. Custom perfumes, body oils, skincare consultations, private beauty rooms, tea service, and evening appointment-only shopping. Mrs. Hand's eyes warmed. Very elegant. Elegant is the front? Adrian looked up immediately. And the back? Zariah smiled faintly. Private membership? Camille's fingers paused. For clients? For women with money, privacy, and standards. Beauty. Business networking. Quiet meetings. Product launches. Private fittings. And protected rooms where wealthy women can speak without every man and soul assuming he owns the conversation. 254. Mrs. Hand's expression softened into approval. That will be powerful. It will be profitable first, Zariah said. Powerful second. Adrian crossed his arms. With you, those usually arrive together. Efficient, isn't it? Camille studied the financial notes. This will expand your beauty and luxury presence even more. Between the existing beauty headquarters, fashion property, boutique hotel, galleries, and this new house, Blackwood influence and soul becomes harder to dismiss. That is the point. And the name? Mrs. Hahn asked. Zariah looked at the building image. She thought of the city watching her, the gala invitation, the old family whispers, Yura's jealousy, Haijin's admiration, Kang Sun-hee's sharp eyes, Min-jae's low voice telling her she looked calm enough for fools to mistake her for merciful. Then she said, Velvet House? Camille smiled immediately. That's beautiful, Mrs. Hahn nodded. Soft name. Strong purpose. Adrian glanced at the screen. I assume the security will be ridiculous. Appropriate, Zariah corrected. Ridiculous, he repeated. Zariah lifted her tea. Both, Camille added the name to the file. Do you want to announce it before or after the gala? Before? 255. Adrian frowned. Before. Yes, let them attend the gala knowing I'm not waiting for acceptance. I'm expanding. Mrs. Hahn's smile was small but proud. That will irritate certain people. It should. Zariah signed the property acquisition approval with one smooth motion. Black ink flowed beneath her hand, and just like that, another piece of Korea moved under the Blackwood name. Not quietly enough to be hidden. Not loudly enough to feel desperate. Precisely. Her phone buzzed beside the folder. Camille glanced at the screen before Zariah touched it. America? Zariah did not reach for it. Which one? Your mother. The phone buzzed again. Your father again. Marcus. Zariah leaned back, watching the screen light up and fade as if her past were pressing its face against a locked window. Read them, she said. Camille hesitated. All the useful ones. Camille opened the message thread, her expression tightening slightly. Your mother says, Zariah, please. We were wrong. We should have treated you better. 256. This has gone too far. We are struggling and Marcus can't find anything. People won't even return our calls. Please don't punish us forever. Please don't punish us forever. Camille looked at the next one. Your father says, I know I failed you. I should have protected you and seen what you were doing for all of us. I'm sorry. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I needed to say it. Mrs. Hand's face softened slightly, but she did not speak. Zariah's eyes remained on the signed Velvet House file. Camille continued more carefully. Marcus says, You made your point. I lost the company. Mom cries every day. Dad barely talks. I can't get hired anywhere. If you hate me, just say that, but stop making everybody act like I'm poison. Adrian's mouth tightened. That one still sounds like him blaming you? Because he is, Zariah said calmly. Camille lowered the tablet. Do you want to respond to any of them? No, not even your father. Zariah's gaze lifted slowly. Camille bowed her head slightly. Sorry, no, Zariah said. It's a fair question. The room waited. Zariah looked back toward Seoul. My father's apology is the only one that sounds like it understands the wound, not just the consequence. But understanding late does not restore access. Not yet. Maybe not ever. 257. Mrs. Hahn nodded faintly, as if the response was exactly what she expected. As for Marcus, Zariah continued, I did not make people treat him like poison. I stopped forcing them to pretend he was on medicine. Adrian laughed quietly before he could stop himself. Zariah's mouth curved. Archive everything, Camille nodded. Yes, ma'am, the messages disappeared into records. Not deleted, never deleted. Zariah preferred proof. Apologies, blame, desperation, admissions, every word had value eventually. But neither deserved a response. Not today. Today, Zariah Blackwood signed another Korea deal. America could continue learning how cold the world felt without her warmth paying the bills. While Zariah expanded her empire, Yunna prepared herself to beg with dignity. At least, that was what she called it. In truth, Yunna had barely slept. The cultural dinner had replayed in her mind all night. Zariah's calm voice, the way the table froze, the way Seo Mi-kyung smiled like she enjoyed watching Yunna be peeled open without a knife, the way Min-jae had arrived just in time to witness her humiliation, the way he had looked at Zariah, not with romance exactly, but with attention so sharp it cut worse than affection would have. Yunna could survive hatred. She could survive indifference because she had lived with Min-jae's indifference for years. But attention? Attention was dangerous. 258. Attention could become curiosity. Curiosity could become wanted. She could not allow that, so she dressed carefully that morning, choosing a pale blue designer dress that made her look soft, innocent, and wounded in the most flattering way possible. Her hair was styled in loose waves. Her makeup was delicate. Her jewelry is tasteful. She wanted Kang's son Hee to see a woman who belonged in old family rooms, a woman who had waited, a woman who had been loyal, a woman who deserved consideration before some foreign billionaire swept in with black nails, sharp eyes, and a name everyone suddenly wanted to whisper. By noon, Yunna reached Kang Estate. The gates did not open immediately. That alone burned. Her driver spoke to the guard. The guard made a call. Minutes passed. Yunna sat in the back seat, fingers clenched around her purse, trying not to let anger ruin her face before she got inside. Finally, the gates opened, but slowly, as if the estate itself was reluctant. Inside the main house, Kang Sun-hee sat in the garden room with tea untouched beside her. Across from her sat Kang Min-jae's grandfather, Kang Dae-hyun, who had returned from Busan earlier that morning. He was in his 80s but carried power like it had settled into his bones decades ago and never left. Tall even in age, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, with sharp eyes and a cane he used more as punctuation than support. He had been feared before Min-jae inherited the shape of fear. Some men became softer with age. Dae-hyun had become quieter, which was worse. Sun-hee looked toward the doorway when the attendant entered. "Yunna is here," the attendant said. 259. Dae-hyun's brows lowered. Why? Sun-hee lifted her tea. Because desperation owns a car. Her husband's mouth twitched, almost smiling. "Do we have to receive her?" "No," Sun-hee said. "But I am bored. That has caused trouble before." "Yes," she replied. "And look how interesting our family became." The attendant wisely stared at the floor. Sun-hee waved one hand. "Bring her." Yunna entered moments later, bowing deeply. "Annyeonghaseyo, Gangyo-sanim, Gang Ho-young-nim. Hello, Mrs. Kang." Chairman Kang. Dae-hyun looked at her over his tea. "You came without invitation." Yura's smile faltered for half a second before she recovered. "I apologize if my visit is sudden. I only wish to pay my respects." Sun-hee looked at her with calm eyes. Respect usually calls before arriving. Yura's cheeks warmed. "I understand. I was worried." "About what?" Dae-hyun asked. Yura lowered her gaze, performing delicacies. "There are many rumors. About Miss Blackwood. About the gala. About Min-jae." Sun-hee took a slow sip of tea. "Min-jae creates rumors by breathing. That is not new." Dae-hyun grunted. "And Miss Blackwood?" Yura's fingers tightened in her lap. "I only worry that people may be moving too quickly to accept someone they do not truly know. She has been in Korea only 10 days. 260. 11, Sun-hee corrected. Yura blinked. "Excuse me. She has been here 11 days now." The correction was small. The insult beneath it was not. Dae-hyun leaned back. "You count another woman's days in Korea?" Sun-hee smiled faintly. "When the woman is interesting, yes." Yura's stomach tightened. "With respect, she is still an outsider." Sun-hee's gaze cooled. "Be careful with that word." Yura froze. Dae-hyun's eyes sharpened. "Do you think birth alone makes someone valuable to this country?" No, Chairman King. I only meant you meant she arrived and received the attention you wanted. The room went silent. Yura's face went pale. Sun-hee set down her cup gently. My husband is old, not blind. Dae-hyun looked at Yura with open impatience. What do you want? Yura swallowed. This was not going the way she planned. She expected resistance, perhaps, but not this. Not immediate exposure. I care about Min-jae. No, Sun-hee said. Yura's lips parted. 261. Sun-hee continued, voice soft but merciless. You care about standing beside him. That is different. I have loved him for years. Dae-hyun made a quiet sound of displeasure. Love that does not care whether it is returned is not love. It is ego wearing perfume. Yura flinched. Sun-hee smiled slightly, as if proud of the phrase. That was good. Dae-hyun glanced at her. I have my moments. Yura's humiliation burned hotter. Miss Blackwood does not love him either. Sun-hee's eyes flashed with something dangerous. No one said she did. Then why invite her into this family circle? Because I wanted to. The simplicity of it struck like a slap. Yura's voice trembled. You never invited me like that. No, Sun-hee said. I did not. Why? Dae-hyun answered before his wife could. Because we do not like you. The room died. Yura stared at him. Sun-hee did not soften the blow. If anything, she looked relieved someone had finally said it plainly. Yura's eyes filled with shocked tears. Chairman Kang. 262. Dae-hyun leaned forward slightly, his cane resting between both hands. Do not look so wounded. You have spent years circling our family, smiling at my wife, pretending concern for Hyejin, and waiting for my grandson to become too tired to reject what he never invited. We do not dislike you because you are ambitious. Ambition can be useful. We dislike you because yours is sticky. Sun-hee gave a small nod. Clinging ambition is unpleasant. Yura's throat worked. I only wanted a chance. Min-jae owes you nothing, Sun-hee said. But she gets one? There it was. The jealousy stripped bare. Sun-hee's face became still. Zariah Blackwood has not asked my grandson for anything. Yura looked away. Dae-hyun watched her closely. That is why you fear her. I don't fear her. Both elders looked at her. Yura hated how much their silence felt like disbelief. Sun-hee leaned back. You followed her. Yura went rigid. You posted about her, Sun-hee continued. You tried to provoke her at dinner, and still she did not crush you, though she could. Yura's eyes snapped up. 263. Sun-hee smiled without warmth. Do you think I don't know the difference between a woman who cannot respond and a woman choosing not to? Dae-hyun's gaze sharpened. Miss Blackwood is above your family in wealth, influence, and reach. If she wished to ruin you, she could do it before this tea went cold. Yura's fingers trembled. Sun-hee saw it. And that is only what can be seen publicly. Warnings under words slipped into the room. Yura suddenly remembered Zariah's stare through the tinted car window. The calm, the coldness, the feeling that violence could sit behind beauty without leaving a visible mark. She swallowed. Is that a threat? No, Dae-hyun said. It is education? Sun-hee lifted her tea again. Leave Miss Blackwood alone. Yura's pride forced one last foolish sentence from her mouth. And if she goes after Min-jae? Sun-hee laughed softly. Dae-hyun looked almost amused. Yura's face burned. My dear, Sun-hee said, voice sweet enough to be cruel. If Zariah Blackwood ever wanted Min-jae, she would not need to chase him. That sentence broke something delicate and ugly inside Yura. She stood too quickly. I understand. No, Dae-hyun said, but you heard us. That will do for now. 264. Yura bowed stiffly, barely holding herself together, and left the room with her pride bleeding behind her. When she was gone, Dae-hyun exhaled through his nose. I dislike her. I know, Sun-hee said. She has no discipline. I know. She will cause trouble. Yes, good, Dae-hyun said. Sun-hee looked at him. Good? His eyes moved toward the window. If Miss Blackwood frightens her without touching her, I want to meet the woman properly. Sun-hee smiled slowly. I thought you might. Tell me about her. Sun-hee picked up the Zariah file from the side table and handed it to him. Gladly. Across Seoul, Zariah was preparing to inspect the building that would become Velvet House when Camille received the update about Yura's visit. They stood inside the empty property, sunlight pouring through dusty windows and falling across marble floors that would soon be replaced. The building still smelled faintly of old perfume, stale champagne, and money that had lost direction. Zoraya walked slowly through the first floor, imagining velvet seating, dark floral arrangements, private fragrance counters, gold lighting, and rooms where women could speak freely behind locked doors. Camille stepped beside her. Yura went to the Kang estate, 265. Zoraya paused near a staircase. Did she? Yes. She met with Kang Sunhee and Kang Dae-hyun. Grandfather returned. Yes. Zoraya's interest sharpened. And... Our source doesn't have full conversation details yet, but Yura left upset. Adrian, standing near the stairwell, looked satisfied. Good. Zoraya resumed walking. Upset how? Humiliated, Camille said. Better... Camille checked another message. It seems neither Kang Elder likes her. Zoraya looked over her shoulder. That was obvious. Adrian frowned. To whom? To everyone except Yura. They continued touring the building. The first floor would become the public luxury beauty and fragrance space. The second floor would become private appointment rooms. The third floor would become members only. The rooftop would become a night garden for quiet events. Zoraya spoke confidently about each decision, and Camille recorded everything. Then they reached the lower level. The basement entrance was half hidden behind a service corridor and an old locked door that did not appear on the updated floor plan. Adrian noticed first. That door isn't listed 266. Zoraya stopped. The air around her changed. Camille looked down at the tablet. There should be storage, but not behind that wall. Adrian gestured to one of the security men. Check it, the guard tried the door. Locked. Zoraya looked at the old metal frame, then at the scuffed floor near the threshold. Recent enough. Not storage. Not forgotten. Open it, she said. Adrian glanced at her. We should clear the building first. Do that, then open it. Within minutes, security swept the floor. No immediate threat. The lock was old but reinforced. Adrian's man picked it while Camille stood back and Zoraya waited with perfect stillness. The door opened with a low groan. Cool air breathed out from below. A narrow staircase descended into darkness. Adrian stepped in front of Zoraya. No.
Zoraya's lips curved faintly.
You're getting predictable and you're getting too pleased. The lights were activated from a switch just inside the stairwell. One by one, dim bulbs flickered on below, revealing concrete steps, old brick walls, and a corridor at the bottom. 267. Zoraya descended with Adrian in
front, two guards behind, and Camille reluctantly following after calling for an external team to stand ready. At the bottom, the corridor opened into a hidden room far larger than expected. It was not storage. It was a private underground lounge, not abandoned either. Leather seating lined the walls. A bar sat along one side, dusty but stocked. A long table occupied the center of the room. Security monitors, disconnected but modern, were mounted near the corner. A back door led to what appeared to be a tunnel or private exit route. On one wall, half hidden behind a curtain, was a symbol burned into dark wood. A black crane wrapped a knife. Camille whispered, "What is this?" Zoraya walked forward slowly, her black nails trailing lightly over the back of a leather chair. The room smelled of smoke, liquor, metal, and old secrets. Not a club. Not exactly. Not a simple hidden lounge. A meeting spot. A mafia spot. Her body recognized it before her mind finished naming it. Rooms like this existed in every country. Different symbols. Different languages. Same purpose. Deals made where cameras did not belong. Debts settled. Men threatened. Alliances formed. Betrayals planned. The underworld loved basements, back rooms, private exits, and beautiful buildings above them to make the darkness look profitable. Adrian's face hardened. This building has an underworld history. Zoraya looked at the burned symbol. Not history. Use 268. Camille swallowed. You think it's still active? Zoraya crouched near the table and touched the edge of an ashtray. Not dusty enough. Someone had been here within weeks, maybe days. Yes, Adrian immediately spoke into his calm. Lock the building down quietly. No one enters. No one leaves the perimeter without clearance. Zoraya stood. Her expression was calm. Too calm. This was the first true underworld door Korea had opened for her without invitation. Business, old families, jealous women, galas. All of that belonged to the upper floor of power. This room was beneath it, literally. Symbolically. A hidden place in a property she had just acquired. Likely forgotten in paperwork because someone assumed foreign money would see the pretty floors and never check the basement properly. How insulting. How useful. Zariah looked at the symbol again. Find out who uses the black crane? Camille nodded quickly. Yes. Adrian turned to her. We should pause the Velvet House opening. No. Miss Blackwood. No, she repeated. We continue. This could connect to Korean mafia groups. 269. Good. He stared at her. Good. Zariah smiled faintly, eyes still on the burned symbol. I was wondering when Korea's underworld would stop hiding behind polished men and finally leave me a door. Camille looked nervous. Adrian looked like he needed a vacation. Zariah walked toward the back exit, but Adrian stepped in front of her. That one stays closed until my team clears it. For once, Zariah said. I agree. That scares me more than disagreement. She laughed softly, then turned back toward the room. Velvet House would open above this, beauty above blood, women above a hidden mafia corridor, luxury above the underworld. Perfect. By evening, Zariah returned to the villa with 3 major pieces of information. The gala guest list had expanded. King Da-yoon wanted to meet her, and the hidden room beneath Velvet House was connected to a symbol her team had not yet identified. That last part interested her most. She stood in her office as rain began tapping lightly against the glass walls. Camille had sent images of the black crane symbol through secure channels. Adrian had 2 teams on the property. Mrs. Han had listened to the update with a calm face that became less calm when the symbol appeared on Zariah's tablet. 270. Zariah noticed. You know it. Mrs. Han hesitated. Speak. The older woman's voice lowered. Not fully, but I have heard of something similar, a small group. Quiet. Older than many newer street organizations. They are not large, but they are connected to the Kangs? Mrs. Han paused again. Everything in that world touches the Kangs eventually, but not everything belongs to them. Zariah's gaze sharpened. Name. I have heard they are called Hukdarumi. Mrs. Han looked at her and translated immediately. Black Crane, Camille typed quickly. Adrian's expression darkened. What do they do? Mrs. Han's face became still. Debts, disappearances, private enforcement. They are not loud people. Zariah looked back at the image of the crane and knife. Black Crane. A hidden mafia spot beneath her new business. A gala in 3 nights. A jealous woman unraveling. Kang elders watching. Min Jae somewhere in the shadows of it all. 271. Zariah smiled slowly. The city had opened another door. This one did not lead to old money manners or women with wounded pride. This one led downward. To the language she knew best. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. Of course, Zariah answered. Mr. Kang. A pause. Then Min Jae's voice came through, low and controlled. You found something today. Zariah looked at the black crane symbol on the tablet. News travels fast. Certain news does. Are you asking or informing? Inquiring. How polite. What did you find? She smiled faintly. A basement. Silence. 272. But enough. Then Min Jae said, Where? Careful, Zariah said softly. That almost sounded like concern. It was not no. It was recognition. Zariah's eyes narrowed slightly. You know the black crane? The silence changed. Mrs. Han looked toward her sharply. Adrian's hand moved closer to his weapon out of pure habit, as if the name itself had entered the room. Min Jae's voice came quieter. Do not touch anything in that room until I see it. Zariah laughed once, softly. Mr. Kang, she said, you are becoming very comfortable giving me instructions. This is not about comfort. Then what is it about? The black crane does not leave rooms behind by accident. Zariah looked back at the rain. Neither do I, she said. The line went silent again. 273. Then Min Jae said, Send me the location. No, Miss Blackwood, if you want the location, ask properly, Adrian muttered. Please don't flirt over mafia basements. Zariah ignored him. Min Jae heard the faint sound and paused. Your security dislikes me. He dislikes everyone, wise, occasionally. Another silence. Then Min Jae said, May I have the location? Zariah smiled. There, she said. Was that so difficult? Extremely. She sent the address. Min Jae read it within seconds. His voice changed. Barely. But enough. That building is yours? 274. As of this morning, it should not have been sold. Yet I bought it. Who handled the sale? My acquisition team. Why? Because someone either made a mistake, he said, or they wanted you to find that room. The office went still. Zariah looked at the black crane again, excitement cooling into calculation. Then they succeeded, she said. Yes? And what happens now? Min Jae's voice lowered. Now we find out whether the invitation was meant for you or for me. Words settled in the room like smoke. Zariah smiled slowly. The gala waited. The black crane waited beneath Velvet House. Yura spiraled in jealousy. The Coleman family begged from across the ocean. The Kang elders prepared to meet her properly. And now, somewhere beneath Seoul's polished surface, the underworld had placed a hidden door directly under Zariah Blackwood's newest business. 275. She looked at the rain-soaked city, her black nails resting against the phone. Good, she said. Min Jae was quiet for a second. Good? Yes, Zariah replied softly. I was beginning to wonder when Korea would stop being polite. The line remained silent. Then, almost too faint to catch, Kang Min Jae laughed. Not fully. Not freely. But enough. And Zariah, against her better judgment, smiled at the sound. 276. Smile of shadows. Seoul looked like it had dressed itself in diamonds and secrets. Rain had passed earlier in the day, leaving the streets glossy beneath the city lights. Black cars moved through the private roads like shadows with headlights, carrying old family names, wealthy donors, cultural leaders, polished wives, dangerous men in tailored suits, and women who knew how to smile while counting enemies. Near the edge of a historic district, a grand cultural hall built with traditional Korean influence and modern luxury woven together so carefully that nothing felt accidental. Warm lanterns glowed along the stone walkway. Tall banners moved lightly in the night breeze. Security stood at every visible entrance, and Zariah knew there would be more hidden where guests were not meant to notice. The gala was no mere event. It was Seoul opening its eyes. Zariah Blackwood sat in the back of her SUV as the convoy moved toward the venue, her hands resting calmly in her lap. Her matte black stiletto nails looked like polished weapons against the deep black satin of her gown. Tonight, Mrs. Han had chosen perfectly. The dress was elegant from the front, fitted through the waist, smooth over her curves, with a high neckline that made her look untouchable rather than covered. But the back was the true statement, open in a graceful cut, framed by delicate gold chains that draped across her skin like jewelry made for a queen who did not need a crown. Her long dark hair fell in sleek waves down one shoulder, leaving the gold details visible when she turned. Her makeup was soft but striking, her lips a deep wine red, her skin glowing rich and flawless beneath the passing streetlights. She looked beautiful. 277, but not soft. Not tonight. Tonight, she looked like a woman arriving to be seen by people who should have been more careful about wanting her attention. Camille sat beside her, reviewing final notes on the tablet. Guest arrivals are already being discussed. Kang Sun-hee and Kang Dae-hyun arrived 20 minutes ago. Chairman Park is present. Seo Mi-kyung is present. Han Yura arrived with her parents. Zariah's gaze stayed on the window. Has she behaved? So far, Adrian, seated in the front passenger seat, gave a low sound of disbelief. That won't last, Camille continued. Kang Min Jae has not arrived. Zariah's expression did not change. Adrian glanced at her through the rearview mirror. No comment? No, that is suspicious. It is silent. With you, silence is rarely innocent. Zariah smiled faintly. Neither am I. The SUV slowed near the front entrance. Camera flashes glittered beyond the tinted glass, even though the gala was considered private. Not press in the public scandal sense, but approved photographers, cultural magazine representatives, society columnists, foundation documentarians. The kind of people who captured power and called it charity. 278. A guard opened the door. Cool night air touched Zariah's skin. She stepped out. The effect was immediate. Conversations near the entrance softened. Photographers turned. A few flashes came quickly, then more, drawn by the sight of her. Zariah did not pause too long. She did not pose like someone hungry for validation. She simply allowed them enough time to capture the image. Zariah Blackwood, newly arrived in Korea, already one of its most powerful women, walking into one of Seoul's most exclusive galas with security at her back and calm written into every inch of her body. Adrian stepped behind her left shoulder. Camille followed at her right. 2 guards remained several paces back, close enough to move if needed, far enough to let Zariah own the space. At the entrance, a hostess bowed deeply. "Bolragudo si, wajushoseo gamsahabnida," she said. "Miss Blackwood, thank you for coming?" Zariah returned the bow with graceful respect. "Kodahai jusioseo gamsahabnida." "Thank you for inviting me." The hostess's eyes flickered with appreciation at the smooth Korean. "Ijugero mosajasubnida. I'll escort you this way." Inside, the cultural hall glowed with warm gold light. Traditional woodwork curved along the ceilings, modern chandeliers hung like suspended stars, and floral arrangements in deep red, ivory, and green filled the space without overwhelming it. The main hall opened into a grand reception area where guests held champagne and spoke in low, polished voices. Women wore gowns that whispered wealth. Men wore black suits and careful expressions. Somewhere, a live string ensemble played softly, elegant enough to make danger feel civilized. 279. Then the room saw her. Not all at once. In waves. First the people closest to the entrance, then the ones who noticed the quiet, then those who followed the direction of every turning head. Zariah felt the attention move over her like silk dragged across a blade. Curiosity, judgment, admiration, envy, calculation, recognition. Good, let them work. She walked forward slowly, her gown moving around her like liquid midnight. Her gold-backed chains caught the light when she turned slightly, and the murmurs sharpened. She heard pieces of Korean around her, soft enough to be polite but not soft enough to escape her. Juria Bulregudo, Zariah Blackwood, Sanga Boda Deo Jolmeo, younger than expected. Gang Yosanimi Kodaha Stadian. The one Mrs. Kang invited. Migujeseyo Jil Gangan Yo Haramyu. They say she's the most powerful woman in America. Zariah's mouth curved faintly. They were learning. Near the center of the hall, Kang Sun-hee stood beside her husband, Kang Dae-hyun. Sun-hee wore a deep plum gown with hanbok-inspired lines, elegant and commanding. Dae-hyun stood beside her in a black formal suit, one hand resting on his cane, silver hair brushed back, sharp eyes already fixed on Zariah. Sun-hee smiled first. 280. Not warmly enough to seem soft. Warmly enough to be meaningful. "Miss Blackwood," she greeted as Zariah approached. "You came exactly as yourself," Zariah bowed respectfully. "As instructed." Dae-hyun's brows lifted slightly. "You follow instructions?" Zariah turned her gaze to him. "Only when I respect the person giving them." Sun-hee's smile widened. Dae-hyun stared at Zariah for one long second, then he laughed. "Low, rough, genuine. I see why my wife likes you." Zariah smiled. "That is either a compliment or a warning." "With her," Dae-hyun said. "Both." Sun-hee looked pleased rather than offended. "My husband has wanted to meet you, so I heard." Dae-hyun's gaze moved over her face, not rudely, but with the assessment of someone who had survived long enough to recognize danger without needing proof. "You do not look like what they say you are." Zariah held his gaze. People often describe power poorly when it comes in a form they did not expect. His eyes sharpened with approval. "Good." Sun-hee touched her husband's arm lightly. "Do not interrogate her before dinner." "I'm not interrogating." Dae-hyun saw Zariah again. "I'm deciding whether the rumors are lazy." Zariah's smile turned slow. "And?" He glanced toward his wife, then back. "They are." That one pleased her. Before she could respond, Yura entered her line of sight. Yura stood across the hall with her parents near a donor table. She wore pale silver again, though tonight the dress looked more expensive, more deliberate, more desperate to appear ethereal. Her mother whispered something in her ear, but Yura was not listening. Her gaze was fixed on Zariah standing with the Kang elders. Zariah looked back at her. Not coldly this time, almost lazily, as if Yura were a candle flickering near a storm. and expecting the sky to feel threatened. Yura's chin lifted, but her hand tightened around her clutch. Daehyun noticed the exchange. "That girl came to our house, so I heard," Zaraya said. She left with more education than she arrived with. Sunhee gave him a look. "You were blunt?" "I was kind. I let her leave." 282. Zaraya laughed softly before she could stop herself. Both Kang elders looked at her. Sunhee's eyes warmed. Daehyun looked satisfied. Across the room, Yura saw all three of them sharing that moment and nearly cracked beneath the humiliation of it. The reception continued, but the energy had changed around Zaraya. People approached her with careful smiles. Some welcomed her to Korea. Some complimented her businesses. Some mentioned the Blackwood global restructuring in America with admiration disguised as curiosity. Zaraya gave each person exactly what they deserved. Grace for the respectful, polished distance for the ambitious, and sharp little truths for anyone foolish enough to condescend. Seo Mi-kyung found her near a display of traditional ceramics. "Miss Blackwood," Seo said, "dressed tonight in deep navy silk, her silver hair pinned with a jade ornament. You have officially become the room's favorite subject. How exhausting for the room." Seo smiled. "They are trying to decide whether you are a blessing, a threat, or an inconvenience. And what have you decided?" Seo lifted her champagne. "All three, depending on who is standing near you." Zaraya accepted that with a faint smile. "Wise answer. I have lived long enough to avoid simple ones." Seo's gaze drifted toward Yura. "The girl is trembling under all that silver. She should sit down before she wrinkles." 283. Seo's laugh was soft and delighted. Cruel. Observant. Even better. A gentle chime sounded through the hall, calling guests toward the ballroom for dinner and the formal program. Seating attendants began guiding people to their tables. Zaraya already knew her place would be intentional. But even so, she almost smiled when she saw the arrangement. She had been placed near the front, at a table with Kang Sunhee, Kang Daehyun, Seo Mi-kyung, Chairman Park, 2 major donors, and 1 empty chair. Interesting. Adrian noticed immediately. "Empty seat," Zaraya sat gracefully. "I see it. I hate empty seats. I know. They're never empty for no reason." Also true. Chairman Park sat across from her with a polite smile that failed to reach his eyes. "Miss Blackwood, it seems we are seated together again." Zaraya unfolded her napkin. "Soul enjoys repetition." Seo covered her smile with her glass. Park's eyes cooled. "Or perhaps it enjoys observing consistency. Then I hope you perform better tonight." 284. Daehyun coughed once, but it sounded suspiciously like laughter. Sunhee sipped her tea with perfect innocence. Park's face tightened, but before he could respond, the ballroom shifted. A quiet change moved from the entrance inward. Not loud, not announced, simply felt. Zaraya did not turn right away. She did not have to. The empty chair explained itself. Kang Min-jae had arrived. The room adjusted around him as it always had. Conversations thinned. Men straightened. Women looked, then looked away, then looked again. He wore all black tonight, the suit cut with devastating precision, the shirt beneath open just enough at the throat for his tattoos to show. The rose tattoo near his neck looked darker beneath the warm gala lighting, almost like ink blooming from shadow. His hair fell neatly around his face, and his expression was unreadable, controlled, calm enough to make every dangerous person in the room aware of their own breathing. His gaze found Zaraya before he reached the table. That was the problem. It did not search. It was found. Zaraya held his eyes across the room as he approached. She felt the attention of everyone around them, noticing, measuring, whispering without words. Yura, seated several tables away with her family, turned pale the moment she saw where he was walking. 285. Min-jae stopped beside the empty chair. Sunhee looked up as if this were a pleasant surprise she had not arranged down to the breath. "Min-jae, you made it?" He glanced at his grandmother. "I was invited. Were you?" Daehyun asked dryly. Min-jae's eyes briefly moved to his grandfather. "Several times." Daehyun grunted. "Then sit." Min-jae sat in the empty chair beside Zaraya. Not across. Beside. Close enough that the faint scent of his cologne reached her. Clean, dark, subtle. Too controlled to be sweet. Too expensive to be obvious. Zaraya did not look at him immediately. She reached for her water first, letting the moment stretch. Then she said softly, "You decided." Min-jae's voice came low beside her. Carefully, her mouth curved. "How obedient?" He turned his head slightly, eyes on her profile. "I wouldn't call it that. No. I imagine you wouldn't." His gaze moved over her gown, not with the hunger of an ordinary man, but with the precision of someone noticing how every choice had been made. The high neckline, the dark satin, the gold across her back, her black nails against the glass. When his eyes returned to her face, something warmer sat beneath 86. "You arrived as yourself," he said. "Your grandmother keeps saying that she enjoys being right, and you?" His eyes held hers. "I enjoy seeing for myself." Heat moved between them. Not loud, not vulgar, not enough for the table to name, but enough for Zaraya to feel the air shift at the edge of her skin. Attention toward the stage before the awareness could become too visible. "Then look carefully, Mr. Kang. I dislike being misread." "I haven't misread you yet. Everyone misreads something eventually. Then I'll choose something interesting." Her fingers tightened once around the stem of her glass. Not from nervousness. From irritation at the fact that he could answer like that without sounding rehearsed. The formal program began with speeches about heritage, scholarship, preservation, and international partnership. Zaraya listened with genuine attention. She did respect the cultural purpose, even if power hummed beneath every tablecloth in the room. When one speaker thanked foreign patrons, he, 287, looked directly toward her, and several heads followed. Zaraya inclined her head politely, neither overly humble nor arrogant. Min-jae leaned slightly closer, not enough to touch. "They are welcoming you publicly." "Yes, and privately. They are deciding what welcoming you will cost." Zaraya glanced at him. "And what do you think?" "I think they should have calculated before sending the invitation." Her lips curved. "Careful." That almost sounded supportive. It was an analysis. You rename everything. You notice everything. Their eyes were too long. Across the room, Yura saw it. She had barely touched her food. Her mother kept whispering for her to compose herself, but composure felt impossible. Min-jae was sitting beside Zaraya. Beside her. Close enough to speak low, close enough for their shoulders to nearly align when they turned toward each other, close enough that anyone watching could see the invisible thread forming between them. Yura's father leaned toward her. "Do not make a scene. I'm not. You already embarrassed yourself once this week." 288. Her eyes flashed. "Father, no." His voice hardened. "The Kangs warned us. You will not drag this family into your obsession." Obsession. The word cut. Yura looked toward Zaraya again. Zaraya was not even looking at her. That hurt worse. After the first speeches, dinner continued. The courses were elegant and traditional with modern presentation, each introduced with care. Zaraya commented respectfully on one dish's regional origin, and Dae-hyun's brows lifted again. "You studied," he said. "I prepared. Most people say they respect a country and then refuse to learn its table." "I dislike lazy respect." Sun-hee looked delighted. "As do I." Min-jae's gaze rested on Zaraya's face. "You dislike laziness in general, yes. That must make most people difficult." "No," she said. "It makes most people temporary." A brief silence followed. Dae-hyun smiled into his cup. 289. SEO looked amused. Chairman Park looked irritated that even her sharper answers were landing well. As the evening deepened, the gala moved into its second phase: donor announcements, cultural performances, and quiet networking between courses. Guests began leaving tables to greet one another. Min-jae rose to speak with an elder near the stage, and Zaraya took the moment to step toward the side gallery where several paintings were displayed. Adrian followed, of course. She stopped before a large ink painting of a crane rising from black water. Not the black crane symbol from Velvet House, but close enough to make her pause. Adrian saw it too. Coincidence? Zaraya studied the brushwork. At a gala connected to old money, after finding a hidden mafia room under my new property. No. No. A voice behind them said, "That painting is over 100 years old." Zaraya turned. King Min-jae stood a few feet away, hands relaxed at his sides, expression unreadable. He had moved quietly, but not unnoticed. Not by her. Not by Adrian. Zaraya looked back at the painting. It resembles something I found. It predates it. The black crane, 290. Minjae's eyes shifted slightly. Not here. Adrian's face darkened. Convenient. Minjae glanced at him. Necessary. Zaraya stepped closer to the painting, lowering her voice. You told me someone may have wanted me to find that room. Yes. Do you know who? Not yet. Do you suspect? Yes. She waited. He did not continue. Zaraya turned her head, meeting his gaze. You enjoy withholding names. I enjoy keeping people alive, until I know which name matters. That answer landed differently. It was not control for control's sake. It was caution with consequence behind it. She studied him, and for a moment, the gala noise faded around the edges. He stood close enough now that the warmth of him reached the space between them, but not close enough to be improper. That restraint irritated her more than arrogance would have. Arrogance could be dismissed. Restraint had to be understood. You think the black crane may move because I bought Velvet House, she said. 291. I think they already moved before you bought it. And I interrupted something. Yes. Good. His mouth almost curved. You say that often when you should not, and yet I am often correct. He stepped a fraction closer, voice low enough for only her to hear. Correct does not mean safe. Zaraya's eyes dropped briefly to the rose tattoo at his throat, then lifted back to his face. Safe has never impressed me. Something changed in his eyes. Not softness. Heat. Controlled, but there. Clearly, he said. The word should not have felt like touch. It did. The way first. Not because she had to, but because the hallway had become too small with both of them standing inside it. Behind them, Adrian shifted. Minjae's gaze flicked toward him. He's going to start hating me more. He started before you arrived. Wise man, 292. Zaraya almost smiled. Occasionally, a sudden ripple of movement came from the ballroom entrance. Guests turned as Yunna approached the side gallery, her face carefully composed and her silver gown catching the light. Two friends trailed behind her, but neither looked eager to be part of whatever she was about to do. Adrian muttered, Here we go. Zaraya remained still. Minjae's expression cooled before Yunna even reached them. Yunna stopped a few feet away, bowing slightly to him first. Minjae, he looked at her. Miss Han. The use of her family name struck hard enough to show in her eyes. She turned to Zaraya with a smile that looked like it had been built over broken glass. Miss Blackwood. You look comfortable tonight. Zaraya's expression remained serene. I am. How nice. Some people would feel nervous being introduced so publicly into old circles. Some people need approval to steady themselves. Yunna's smile twitched. Minjae said nothing. That silence made everything worse for Yunna, because it was not protective. Not of her. Yunna glanced at the painting. Admiring Korean art now? Zaraya looked back at the crane. Respecting it? Is there a difference? 293. There usually is when the person looking understands depth. One of Yunna's friends looked down quickly. Yunna's face tightened. You speak as though you've been here longer than 11 days, and you speak as though time alone gave you value. The words landed cleanly. Yunna inhaled. Minjae's gaze moved to Zaraya, and there it was again, that quiet recognition of restraint. She could have said more. Much more. She did not. Yunna stepped closer, foolishness pushing past fear. You think you can come here and take everything? Adrian shifted. Minjae's eyes hardened. Zaraya lifted one hand slightly, stopping both men without looking at either of them. Then she turned fully toward Yunna. The hallway seemed to cool. I think, Zaraya said softly, that you keep confusing my presence with your loss. Yunna's lips parted. Zaraya took one slow step closer. Not enough to threaten physically, enough to make Yunna feel the space disappear. I have not taken anything from you, Yunna. Not a title, not a man, not a family, not a place. You are grieving a fantasy and calling it loyalty. 294. Yunna's face drained. Zaraya's voice lowered, smooth and lethal. Do not make me responsible for what you never owned. Silence. Yunna looked at Minjae, desperate for something. A correction. A defense. Even a warning toward Zaraya. He gave her nothing. Nothing. That was when Yunna understood the true shape of her humiliation. Not only had Zaraya spoken the truth before him, Minjae agreed by remaining silent. Yunna's eyes shone with angry tears. You'll regret embarrassing me. Zaraya smiled. And there it was. The look, not rage, not fear, not even an annoyance. The calm, dark stare that made Yura remember the car, the dinner, the way her own body had trembled before she could stop it. Zaraya said, Yura, you will regret confusing embarrassment with danger. For 1 second, Yura could not move. Min-jae finally spoke, his voice quiet enough to be terrifying. Leave. Yura looked at him. Min-jae, 295. Now, 1 word, no volume, no mercy. Yura stepped back as if the word had touched her skin. Her friends moved immediately, one taking her arm and guiding her away before she could ruin herself further. When she disappeared into the ballroom, the silence remained. Adrian exhaled slowly. That was restrained. Zaraya looked at him. Was that praise? That was a concern disguised as praise? Min-jae turned to Zaraya. She will escalate. She has already escalated. She simply lacks imagination that can make her useful to someone who has it. Zaraya's eyes sharpened. You think someone may use her? Yes. The Black Crane? Possibly. Chairman Park? Possibly SEO? Min-jae paused. 296. Interesting. Zaraya smiled faintly. You hesitate around her. I respect her. That was not a denial. No. Their eyes held. The tension from before returned, but changed now, threaded with underworld weight. The gala around them continued, music, laughter, clinking glasses, but the side gallery felt like a private room built from danger and heat. Min-jae stepped closer. This time, close enough that if Zaraya moved, the gold chains across her back might brush his jacket. Do not go to Velvet House without telling me, he said. Her chin lifted. That sounded like an order. It was closer to one. A slow smile touched her lips. Brave. Necessary. You keep using that word? Because you keep walking toward things that kill careless people? Zaraya's eyes darkened. I am not careless. No, he said, voice low. That is why I am still speaking politely. Heat moved through her at that. Not because of the words alone. 297. Because of how he said them. Calm. Controlled. But under scrutiny was something sharper than concern, and more dangerous than simple interest. He was not trying to frighten her. He was trying to get close enough to matter without admitting that was what he was doing. Zaraya saw it. And from the way his gaze dropped briefly to her mouth before returning to her eyes, he knew she saw it. Mr. Kang, she said softly, if you want to be informed of my movements, you will need a better reason than concern. His eyes held hers. What reason would you accept? Truth. The answer sat between them. Min-jae's expression did not change, but the air did. Then he said quietly, because the room beneath Velvet House is tied to men who once tried to kill my grandfather. Smile faded. Behind them, Adrian went completely still. Min-jae continued, voice low and controlled. And if they left that symbol for you to find, they are not welcoming you to Korea. They are inviting you into an old war. That was the truth. Not all of it, but enough. Zaraya studied his face, the controlled anger beneath his calm, the shadow that passed briefly through his eyes when he mentioned his grandfather. Suddenly the 298 Black Crane symbol became heavier, not just a hidden mafia spot, not just a mystery beneath her new business, a thread tied to blood inside the Kang family. And you think I should step away? She asked. No, that surprised her. His gaze held hers. I think if you step in, you should know where the floor is weak. Zaraya's pulse moved once, slow and deep. This man, this impossible, controlled, dangerous man. He did not tell her to run from the door. He told her where it might collapse. That was different. That was respect. Her voice softened. Better. Min-jae's eyes narrowed slightly. Better? That reason I accept. The heat returned, quieter now, more dangerous because it had been joined by trust's smallest shadow, not trust itself, but the possibility of it. To winning too fragile to name and too sharp to ignore. From the ballroom, applause rose as the next performance was announced. Neither of them moved. Then Min-jae retired first. 299. Not retreat. Control. We'll speak after the gala, he said. Will we? Yes. Another guess? No. His eyes held hers. An intention. Zaraya smiled slowly. Before she could answer, Sun-hee appeared at the entrance of the side gallery with her husband beside her. Dae-hyun's sharp eyes moved between them, then to the painting, then back. "I wondered where the interesting people went," Sun-hee said. Zaraya turned with perfect composure. Admiring the art, Dae-hyun looked at Min-jae. "Is that what we call it now?" For the first time, Min-jae looked mildly irritated. Zaraya almost laughed. Sun-hee's gaze settled on Zaraya with warm calculation. "Come, they are beginning donor recognition. Your name will be called..." Zaraya's brows lifted slightly. "Will it?" "Of course," Sun-hee said. "Those who shape a city should be seen by it. So it had been her." Zaraya smiled. "You wrote the line." Sun-hee did not deny it. "Did you like it?" 300. "I understood it." "Even better." They returned to the ballroom together. And this time, the room saw something it would not stop discussing. Zaraya Blackwood walked back in with Kang Min-jae on one side, Kang Sun-hee, and Kang Dae-hyun near the other. Han-yura stood across the room pale with humiliation, and Chairman Park watched with narrowed eyes. The donor recognition began moments later. Names were called. Applause followed. Then the host paused, looking towards Zaraya with formal respect. "And tonight, we recognize a new international patron whose investments in Korea have already begun strengthening cultural spaces, employment structures, and global partnership. Miss Zaraya Blackwood." The room applauded. Not politely, strongly. Some because they respected her. Some because the Kang elders were clapping. Some because they knew better than to hesitate. Zaraya stood. She did not rush. She did not smile too widely. She bowed with respect, first to the stage, then to the room. "Kodae jusyeoseo 감사합니다," she said in Korean, her voice smooth and clear. "Thank you for inviting me." The room quieted. 301. "I came to Korea prepared to learn, not to assume. To build, not to take without understanding. I believe respect should be visible not only in words, but in how we treat workers, protect culture, honor talent, and strengthen what already has value." She paused, her gaze moving across the room. "I am grateful to be received, and I intend to contribute with care. Simple. Elegant. Perfectly controlled." The applause came again, warmer this time. Min-jae watched from his seat, his expression unreadable, but his eyes told the truth. He was impressed. Not loudly, not romantically, but enough. And Zaraya, as she sat down, felt his gaze like heat against her skin. The gala continued late into the night, but the most important parts had already happened. Yura had been exposed again. The Kang elders had publicly positioned themselves near Zaraya. Min-jae had given her truth about the Black Crane. Seoul had applauded her name. And the old families had seen that Zaraya Blackwood did not need to demand space in their world. She occupied it until the world adjusted. When the event finally ended, guests spilled slowly toward the entrance beneath glowing lanterns and cool night air. Zaraya stepped outside with Adrian and Camille nearby. The SUV waited near the front steps. Min-jae appeared beside her before she reached the car. 302. Adrian saw him and sighed. Zaraya looked at him. "You appear quietly for someone so noticeable." Min-jae's mouth curved faintly. "You notice quietly for someone so watched." Was that almost a compliment? "No, liar." His eyes darkened with amusement. For a moment they stood beneath the lantern light, close enough that the world around them seemed to blur into movement and murmurs. His gaze lowered to the gold chains across her back, then returned to her face with disciplined restraint. "You were good tonight," he said. The words were simple. Too simple. Zaraya's brow lifted. "Good. At being seen, that landed differently." Her voice softened. "And you, what about me? Were you good tonight?" His eyes held hers. "At watching, yes, no," he said quietly. "I was too interested." 303. Heat curled through the silence. Zaraya did not look away. Neither did he. The space between them became dangerously thin. Then Adrian opened the SUV door with a little more force than necessary. "Miss Blackwood," he said. Zaraya's smile flickered. Min-jae glanced at Adrian, then back at her. "Your guard has excellent timing." "He thinks so." "I know so," Adrian muttered. Zaraya stepped toward the SUV, then paused. "After the gala, you said..." Min-jae's gaze sharpened. "Tomorrow. Velvet House. Are you asking?" "Yes." Her smile deepened. Properly. A faint smile touched his mouth. I am trying, then try harder. For one suspended second, he looked like he might step closer. He did not. Control again. Always control. 304. Miss Blackwood, he said, voice low enough to slide beneath her skin. May I see the room beneath Velvet House tomorrow evening? Zariah held his gaze. There it was, heat wrapped in manners, danger dressed as respect. She entered the SUV slowly, then looked back at him through the open door. Yes, Mr. Kang, she said. You may... Adrian closed the door before either could say anything worse. As the convoy pulled away, Zariah looked through the tinted window and saw Min Jae still standing beneath the lantern light, dark and still, his eyes following her car until the gate swallowed the view. Camille, sitting across from her now, spoke carefully. That went well. Adrian stared forward. That is not the phrase I would use. Zariah leaned back against the leather seat, the gold chains at her back cool against her skin, her black nails resting in her lap. No, she said softly. It went exactly how it needed to. Outside Seoul glittered under the night sky, beautiful and dangerous, and finally honest enough to show its teeth. Gala had not finished testing. It opened the next one. And tomorrow, beneath Velvet House, Zariah Blackwood and Kang Min Jae would step together into the hidden dark. 305. 306. Chapter 15. Beneath Velvet House. The night after the gala did not feel like an ending. It followed Zariah Blackwood back to her villa like perfume clinging to skin after a crowded room. Faint, expensive, impossible to ignore. Seoul glittered beyond the tinted SUV windows, its streets still shining from earlier rain, its towers throwing silver and gold into the darkness. The city looked beautiful in that polished, disciplined way it had, but Zariah had learned enough by now to know beauty was never the whole truth. Seoul wore its secrets well. It hid them beneath cultural galas, old family smiles, private foundations, expensive tea, and men like Kang Min Jae, who could stand beneath lantern light and say something as simple as I was too interested, and make the air feel dangerous. Zariah sat in the back seat with her hands resting in her lap, her matte black stiletto nails still perfect against the satin of her gown. Sheaths across her back felt cool beneath her hair, delicate reminders of a night designed for spectacle and observation. She had been seen tonight. Not merely noticed, not merely whispered about, but seen by Seoul's old circles in a way that could not be undone. They had watched her enter. Watched Kang Sun-hee and Kang Dae-hyun receive her with clear approval. I watched Kang Min Jae sit beside her. Watched Hanyura lose another piece of herself trying to provoke a woman who did not need volume to win. I watched Zariah speak with enough respect to be praised and enough power to be feared. The gala had done exactly what it was intended to do. It placed her beneath the lights. It also placed everyone else's reactions there with her. Across from her, Camille reviewed quiet updates on the tablet, though she had the good sense not to speak unless necessary. Adrian sat in the front passenger. 307. Seat. Silent but visibly displeased in that familiar way that meant he was not angry at Zariah exactly, only at the number of dangerous people now orbiting her life with increasing confidence. Finally, he spoke. Tomorrow evening at Velvet House, he said. You're really allowing him into that basement. Zariah did not look away from the window. He asked properly, That is not a security protocol. It should be. Men are more tolerable when trained. Camille lowered her head quickly, hiding a smile. Adrian did not. I'm serious. So am I. Min Jae said that room is tied to the men who tried to kill his grandfather. That makes it unstable? No, Zariah said softly. That makes it useful. Adrian turned slightly. Useful things can still get people killed, so can useless things. At least it has dignity. He exhaled through his nose. 3 after Gallus. It was impossible before the gala. That is unfortunately true. The SUV veered off the private road to the villa. The gates opened before they reached them, iron and shadow sliding apart beneath warm security lights. The house appeared ahead, glowing against the night, all glass, stone, black lines, and red roses visible through the front windows. It looked peaceful, untouched. Hers. 308. The moment the vehicle stopped, Adrian stepped out first. Security moved around the convoy in practiced silence. Zariah waited until her door opened, then entered the cool night air. For a second, the world was nothing but the soft whisper of her gown, the distant hum of soul below, and the faint scent of rain in the garden. Mrs. Han waited inside the entrance hall. She took one look at Zaraya, and understood that the night had not ended inside the gala ballroom. "Karil jumbi hasubnida," Mrs. Han said gently. "I prepared tea." Zaraya removed one earring slowly. "Thank you." Mrs. Han's gaze softened. "The gala?" "Successful," Adrian muttered. "Complicated?" Mrs. Han looked at him. "Those often arrive together." Zaraya smiled faintly. "She's learning from me?" "No," Adrian said. "You're learning from each other, which is worse." Mrs. Han's mouth curved before she lowered her eyes. Zaraya walked toward her private office instead of her bedroom. She should have changed. She should have removed the gown, the heels, the jewelry, the carefully painted calm that had carried her through the evening. But her mind would not quiet. The black crane symbol sat behind everything now, the hidden basement beneath Velvet House, the crane and knife burned into wood. Mrs. Han's warning. Min Jae's confession that the group was linked to the men who tried to kill Kang Dae-hyun. His controlled voice when he said it. His refusal to tell her to leave. He had not treated her like a woman to protect from danger. 309. He had treated her like a woman who deserved to know where danger began. That mattered. It should not have mattered as much as it did. Inside her office, the city waited beyond the glass. Rain streaks from earlier still marked the windows, thin silver lines catching the light. The gala invitation lay on her desk beside her notebook, now joined by the acquisition folder for Velvet House and the photographs from the basement. The black crane symbol stared from the tablet screen. A black crane wrapped a knife. Zaraya stood over the image, her brows slightly drawn. Something about it bothered her. Not only because it was connected to the Korean underworld, not only because of Min Jae's grandfather, not only because it had been burned into a secret room beneath her newly acquired business. It bothered her because it felt familiar. Not recently familiar. Not in the way a symbol looked after one had stared at it too long. It pulled from somewhere older, deeper, buried beneath years of reinvention and discipline. A shape tugging at memory. A line she had seen before. A curve she had known before someone else used it as a warning. Camille noticed her expression. "Miss Blackwood?" Zaraya raised one hand slightly, stopping the question before it formed. She stared at the image longer. The crane's wing curved too sharply at the edge. The knife was not centered. The circle behind the bird was broken at the lower left, not by accident but by design. A flaw made intentional. A signature disguised as imbalance. Her heartbeat slowed. 310. No, not possible. Mrs. Han entered quietly with tea and set it on the desk. "Would you like me to have food prepared?" Zaraya did not answer. Adrian's attention sharpened. "Miss Blackwood?" Zaraya turned from the desk suddenly. "The old laptop," Camille blinked. "Which one?" "The black one. From America." "The damaged one," Camille's face changed. "It's in the secured luggage archive. We thought it was no longer powered." "So did I." Adrian stepped closer. "Why?" Zaraya looked back at the black crane symbol. Her voice lowered. "Bring it." No one asked another question. Within 10 minutes, one of Zaraya's security men entered carrying a slim black laptop in a protective case. It had been packed with items she had almost left behind in America. Old drives, sealed documents, personal notebooks, and the few pieces of her past she had not thrown away with the phone. The laptop had not turned on in years. She had kept it for reasons she never fully admitted. Maybe because it belonged to the last version of herself that drew without thinking every line had to become a strategy. Maybe because some part of Zaraya, 311. Coleman had lived inside those files before Zaraya Blackwood became real enough to bury her. The laptop was placed on her desk. It looked old under the office lights, scratched at the edges, the black casing worn near the corners, a thin crack near the hinge. Zaraya ran one nail over the top slowly. For the first time that night, something almost like unease moved through the room. Adrian stood behind her left shoulder. Camille stood near the desk. Mrs. Han remained by the door, her face calm but worried. Zaraya opened the laptop. The screen stayed black. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a faint mechanical hum, it powered on. Camille whispered, That's impossible. The screen flickered once, twice. Then light filled the display. And there it was, the wallpaper. A black crane wrapped a knife, the same broken circle, the same sharp wing, the same off-centered blade, the same intentional flaw, but cleaner, original. 312. Drawn in digital ink on a dark background. Zariah went still, not frozen. Still, there was a difference. The room seemed to lose sound around her. Mrs. Hahn's breath caught softly near the doorway. Adrian's body tightened. Camille lifted one hand to her mouth but did not speak. Zariah stared at the symbol on the laptop screen, and the past opened beneath her feet. She remembered drawing it. Not as a child. Not exactly. As a young woman who had already learned silence. Already learned pain. Already learned that family could abandon you while still using your money. She had drawn it during the beginning of Blackwood, before the name became Empire, before the world learned to treat her carefully. A crane because cranes were elegant, long-necked, graceful, and often mistaken for delicate from a distance. A knife because elegance without defense was simply decoration. A broken circle because she had once written beneath the design, no cage closes around what it learns to cut. She had created it as an emblem, a private mark. A symbol for the hidden side of her empire before she stopped handling every shadow personally, before operations expanded, before men and women beneath her structure moved in countries she did not personally enter, before Blackwood became too large for her to keep every underworld branch close enough to her hand. But Korea? 313. The room beneath Velvet House? The attack on Kang Dae-hyun? No. Her face did not change, but her voice became very quiet. Camille? Yes? Secure the office. Camille moved immediately. Adrian stepped toward the door and spoke into his calm. Office lockdown. No one enters. No one approaches this wing unless cleared by me. Mrs. Hahn closed the door with careful hands. Zariah entered a password she had not typed in years. The laptop hesitated. Then it opened. Folders filled the screen. Some names she recognized. Old business structures, early Blackwood assets, hidden ledgers, encrypted archives, artwork files, private systems. Then one folder sat near the bottom, labeled only with 2 characters. BC Zariah clicked it. A second password prompt appeared. 314. She typed another sequence, one she remembered not with her mind but with her body. Numbers tied to no birthday, no obvious date, nothing sentimental enough to be guessed. The folder opened. Inside were files, many of them. Black Crane Charter, regional command structure, asset chains, enforcement records, debt routes, safe house lists, names, territories, symbols, maps. Korea appeared in one folder. Zariah opened it. Her expression finally changed, only slightly. Enough for Adrian to see danger arrive. The Korean Black Crane branch had been established years earlier through intermediaries tied to private debt collection, enforcement, and protection networks. It had grown quietly. Too quietly. Reports had been routed through layers, then filtered upward through people Zariah no longer allowed near her inner circle. Certain files stopped receiving direct approvals. Others contained signatures from commanders who should never have acted without clearance. Then she found the file that made the room cold. Operation Han River Old Blood. Adrian stepped closer. Miss Blackwood? Zariah opened it. Photos appeared. Old ones. 315. Kang Dae-hyun is younger by several years, leaving a private meeting. Route schedules. Vehicle images. Payment trails. Names of men involved. Orders buried under coded language. Not an assassination order from Zariah. Not from her hand. But connected to a rogue Black Crane cell that had used her symbol. Her structure. Her old authority, to strike at Kang Dae-hyun during a power conflict she had never been briefed on. The report called the operation incomplete. Targets survived. Several participants scattered. Outside sponsors protect some. Zariah's eyes moved line by line. No one spoke. The silence was not empty anymore. It was violent. Finally, Camille whispered, "You didn't know." Zariah did not look away from the screen. "No." Adrian's voice was low. "This branch went rogue." "Yes." Mrs. Hahn's face had gone pale. "Miss Blackwood." Zariah lifted one hand, not to silence her harshly, but because she needed the room to remain steady. 2 files faster now. Names, locations, old transfers, current aliases. One cell commander is still active in Seoul. One money handler hidden inside a shipping office. 2 enforcement men tied to private security contracts. 1, 316. Retired fixer living under protection in Incheon. One sponsor name is partially hidden behind encrypted markings. She opened the command file. At the top sat a title she had not expected to see and yet somehow understood the moment it appeared. Supreme Head, Zariah Blackwood her name. Her symbol, her hidden organization. Her shadow, the black crane was hers. Not in rumor, not indirectly. Not by influence. Hers. Zariah leaned back slowly, her black nails resting on the edge of the laptop. She looked calm, but something inside the room had shifted. Camille looked shaken. Mrs. Han looked devastated for her. Adrian looked ready to kill someone simply because Zariah had been unknowingly tied to harm done under her name. Zariah's voice was soft when she finally spoke. They used my symbol to strike his family, Camille said. Without your knowledge. Zariah looked at her. That does not make it clean, no, Adrian said. But it makes the target clear. Zariah turned her gaze to him. 317. He understood immediately. Find them, she said. Adrian nodded once. All of them. All of them. Camille straightened, already moving toward the secure terminal. I'll pull current data from the files and cross-reference with our Korean teams. No, Zariah said. Camille stopped. Zariah looked back at the screen, eyes cold enough to make the city beyond the glass seem warm. Use Black Crane channels. The room went still again. Adrian's jaw tightened. Then he gave one slow nod. You want the ghost to call its own dead? Yes, Mrs. Han whispered. And Mr. Kang? Zariah closed the laptop halfway, not fully. The Black Crane wallpaper still glowed from the screen. I'll tell him. Adrian stepped closer. Before we move? Yes. Camille looked worried. How much? Zariah's gaze lifted. 318. All of it, no one argued. Because that was the difference between guilt and loyalty. Zariah could have hidden the discovery. Could have eliminated the rogue cell quietly. Could have told Min Jae later with half-truths dressed as strategy. Many powerful people would have. Most mafia bosses certainly would have. But Zariah was not against Min Jae. She was not in Seoul to aim old shadows at his family. She had not known. And because she had not known, truth mattered more now, not less. She picked up her phone and called the unknown number. He answered on the second ring. Miss Blackwood. His voice was low, controlled. Familiar in a way she did not have time to examine. Zariah looked at the laptop screen. Mr. Kang, she said. You need to come to the villa. A pause. Not long, but immediate in its weight. What happened? The Black Crane? The silence on the line changed. Adrian watched her. 319. Camille stopped typing. Mrs. Han closed her eyes briefly. Min Jae's voice came quieter. What about it? Zariah's fingers rested against the edge of the laptop, her black nails still as knives. It's mine. For 1 second there was nothing. No sound, no breath. Then Min Jae said, I'm on my way. He did not accuse. He did not ask if she was lying. He did not hang up. That mattered. Zariah ended the call looking at Adrian. Continue tracing. I want locations before he arrives. We'll have them... And Camille? Yes? Pull every command override tied to my original authority. If Black Crane answers me, I want every active cell frozen except the ones we need to move tonight. Camille's fingers flew over the secure terminal. Yes, ma'am. 320. Mrs. Han stood quietly near the door, her face pale but composed. Miss Blackwood, the Kang family will need to understand. They will... You did not know. Was calm. I know, but the words did not comfort her. Knowledge was not innocence. Innocence was too soft a word for her world anyway. She had built a shadow and allowed it to become large enough that someone else had used it while her eyes were elsewhere. That was not the same as ordering the attack, but it was still a failure of control. Zariah did not forgive failure in others. She would not excuse it in herself. 24 minutes later, Kang Min Jae arrived at the villa. No announcement beyond the security confirmation, no entourage, no spectacle. One black vehicle. 2 men who stayed near it. Min Jae entered the house in a black coat over dark clothes. His hair slightly wind-touched, the rose tattoo at his throat visible above his open collar. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were not cold. They were alert. Dangerously so. Mrs. Han led him to the office. Adrian stood near the door. Camille remained at the terminal. Zaraya stood beside her desk, the old laptop open behind her, the black crane symbol glowing like a confession. Min Jae entered. His gaze went to the screen. 321. Everything in him stilled. Not physically, deeper. Zaraya did not speak first. She let him see it. Let him recognize the symbol. Let him understand the form of truth before she gives him words. Finally, his eyes moved to her. You said it's yours. Yes. His voice stayed calm, but something controlled and violent moved beneath it. Explain. So she did. Not softly. Not defensively. Not with tears or excuses. She told him everything she had discovered. The old laptop, the wallpaper, the symbol she drew years ago, the black crane files, the rogue Korean branch, the operation tied to his grandfather, the lack of her direct order, the names surfacing through the old command structure. She did not decorate the truth. She did not make herself smaller to seem innocent. She stood in the center of her office, face calm, shoulders straight, and told the most feared man in Korea that the symbol connected to his grandfather's attack belonged to her hidden empire. Min Jae listened without interrupting. That was worse than anger from most men. When she finished, the office held its breath. Adrian watched him closely. Too closely. Min Jae's gaze shifted to the laptop again. Then to the files Camille had pulled onto the larger screen. Photos of men, locations, payment trails, current aliases, the operation name. 322. His jaw tightened once when Kang Dae-hyun's photo appeared. Only once. Then he looked back at Zaraya. You didn't know. It was not a question. Zaraya's voice remained steady. No, you would have told me if you did, yes. You called me before moving. Yes. His eyes stayed on hers. Something passed between them then. Something too quiet to name but too important to ignore. He was angry. Of course he was. But the anger was not aimed blindly at her. It moved through the room like a blade searching for the correct throat. Zaraya understood that kind of anger. She respected it. Min Jae approached the table and looked at the names. How many? 5 confirmed alive and reachable within 5 hours, Adrian said. Possibly 6 if the sponsor is in Seoul. Min Jae's eyes did not leave the screen. Who gave the final order? Camille pulled up the encrypted chain. Not fully decrypted. But the field order came through a man named Ryu Suk-min, former Black Crane Cell commander. Current location, private warehouse near Incheon Industrial District. 323. Min Jae's gaze darkened. Zaraya watched him. You know him. I know of him. He touched your grandfather. He arranged the root breach. Zaraya's voice lowered. Then he dies last. Min Jae turned his head toward her. The room shifted. There it was. No apology, no helpless guilt, no attempt to distance herself from the blood. She took the truth, placed it in her palm, and turned it into consequence. His eyes held hers. The Kang family will not blame you for something you did not know, he said. Zaraya did not blink. This is not about blame. No. No. It happened under my symbol. I will correct it under my hand. Min Jae watched her for a long moment. Then something in his face changed. Not softness. Respect, sharper than before. My grandfather will want the truth, he said. He'll have it. 324. My grandmother, too. She'll have it. And me? Zaraya stepped closer to the screen, her black nails resting lightly beneath Ryu Suk-min's photo. You get revenge? The words settled into the office like a vow. Min Jae's gaze stayed on her. Then he nodded once. Not dramatic, not grateful, aligned. Within 30 minutes the villa became silent, not chaos. Zaraya did not allow chaos near her work. Camille coordinated digital access, old Black Crane command channels, and live tracking. Adrian deployed 2 teams to monitor identified locations. Min Jae made 3 calls, all short, all in Korean, each one quiet enough that the words barely carried but firm enough that the men receiving them probably moved before the call ended. Ranged coffee, tea, medical bags, dark coats, gloves, and a private room, where Kang Sun-hee and Kang Dae-hyun could arrive safely if Min-jae chose to bring them into the truth before dawn. He did. Not in person at first, by secure video. 325. Kang Sun-hee appeared on the office screen with Dae-hyun beside her, both dressed despite the late hour, as if age had trained them never to receive dangerous news unprepared. Sun-hee's eyes moved first to Min-jae, then to Zariah, then to the black crane symbol on the laptop. Dae-hyun's face became stone. Zariah told them the truth herself. Again. No excuses, no pleading, no trembling. When she finished, silence held for several seconds. Then Dae-hyun spoke. "You did not order it." "No, you did not know." "No." "But it was your bird." Zariah held his gaze. "Yes." Sun-hee watched her carefully. "And now?" Zariah's voice was quiet. "Now I remove every hand that used it against your family." Da-hyun stared at her. Then slowly his mouth curved. 326. Not with joy, with recognition. "There she is," he said. Sun-hee exhaled softly as if relieved and proud at once. "Min-jae?" He looked at his grandmother. "You believe her?" Sun-hee asked. Min-jae did not hesitate. Yes, something shifted in Zariah's chest. Not a weakness. Something more dangerous. Trust offered without foolishness. Dae-hyun leaned closer to the screen. "Then bring me their names when it is done." Min-jae's voice remained low. "I'm going with her." Sun-hee closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. "Of course you are." Dae-hyun looked at Zariah. "Bring my grandson back." Zariah's eyes sharpened. "I will. And Miss Blackwood?" "Yes." His gaze became cold, old, and brutal. "Make sure Ryu Suk-min knows why he dies." Zariah nodded once. "He will." 327. The call ended. The Kang family did not turn from her. They did not blame her. They saw what mattered. She had not known she had told the truth, and now she was moving faster than guilt could poison the room. That was all Zariah needed. At 1:11 in the morning, the first location was hit. Not by the police, not by public forces. This belonged to the underworld, and the underworld understood different laws. A money handler named Choi Yoon-suk was found in a private office above a shipping broker's storefront, trying to burn paper files despite thinking no one knew he still kept physical records. Zariah did not enter the building herself. Not yet. She stood in the back of a black SUV with the door open, watching through a live feed as Adrian's team secured him and pulled the ledger before the flames took more than one corner. Min-jae stood beside her, coat open against the cold, tattoos visible over his hand as he held his phone. He looked calm. Too calm for anyone who did not understand what kind of control it took to stay still while revenge approached. "Choi moved payments," Zariah said. "Yes," Min-jae replied. "He lives? For now, good." He looked at her. "You want him to speak." 328. "I want him to wish he had spoken earlier." At 1:40, the second target was found. 2 former enforcement men, brothers using false names, living under private security contracts in a residential tower outside Central Seoul. They had thought time made them clean. Time did not clean men. It only made them easier to surprise when they became comfortable. Min-jae went for it. Zariah went with him. Adrian hated it, which was becoming a theme, but he did not stop her. He simply surrounded her with enough security to make the hallway feel like a quiet execution procession. The brothers were dragged from their apartment before realizing who had entered. One saw Min-jae first and began shaking. The other saw Zariah and looked confused. That insulted her more. "You don't know me," she said softly. The man's breath came fast. "I don't, you used my symbol." His eyes widened. There it was. Recognition, late and terrified. Zariah stepped closer, towering over the fear beginning to unravel him. She was taller than most women they expected to fear. Tall enough in her heels to make men shift backward before they remembered pride. Tonight, dressed in black. 329. Beneath a long coat, she looked less like a businesswoman, and more like the truth people found in rooms with no witnesses. "Now you know me," she said. The man started talking within 3 minutes. At 2:20, the third location gave them the missing piece. A retired fixer named Im Dae-sik had been hiding in a quiet house near Incheon under a dead man's identity. He did not run when they arrived. Old fixers knew when running became comedy. He sat at his kitchen table with a glass of water and asked whether Kang Dae-hyun had finally died. Min-jae hit him once. Only once. The sound cracked through the kitchen. The old man spat blood and laughed until Zaraya entered the room. Then he stopped. Because he saw the black crane symbol on the ring she had chosen from the old laptop case. She had found it tucked inside a hidden compartment. Black metal, crane etched into the surface. A piece of authority she had not worn in years because she had forgotten it existed. The old man looked at the ring, then at her face. His voice broke. Supreme head. Min-jae's gaze cut to her, not in accusation. In understanding. Zaraya did not look away from the fixer. You remember who I am, 330. He swallowed. You thought I was too far away to notice. No. We thought you were gone. Zaraya's smile was small and cold. Worst mistake. He gave them the sponsor's partial name before he lost 2 fingernails. Zaraya did not flinch. Neither did Min-jae. By 3:30, they had the sponsor. Not SEO Mi-kyung. Not Chairman Park directly. A man connected to both their circles, Director Han Jae-ryul, an old intermediary who moved between foundations, private security, and underworld favors. He had arranged the old attempt on Dae-hyun during a conflict over port routes and used the rogue Black Crane cell because the symbol would confuse retaliation. If the attack succeeded, the Kangs would suspect foreign interference. If it failed, the men involved could vanish behind a name too shadowed to trace. Except now the actual owner of that shadow had arrived in Korea, and she was displeased. At 4:10 in the morning, they found Ryu Suk-min, the final confirmed man, the one who had led the rogue cell. He was in an industrial warehouse outside Incheon, exactly where Camille's tracing placed him, surrounded by 4 guards who believed weapons made them meaningful. Zaraya's team cut the power first. Min-jae's men blocked the exits. Adrian needed. By the 331 time Ryu realized the building had been surrounded, the doors had already opened. Zaraya entered beside Min-jae. Not behind him. Beside him. The warehouse was cold, smelling of rust, oil, salt air, and old fear. Emergency lights glowed red along the walls. Ryu stood near the center, gun in hand, face pale but trying to arrange itself into arrogance. He was older now than in the files, thicker around the jaw, but his eyes were the same. Greedy. Clever once. Less clever tonight. He looked at Min-jae first, then Zaraya, and recognition nearly dropped him to his knees. Blackwood, he whispered. Zaraya walked forward slowly. Her heels struck the concrete with quiet finality. Her long black coat moved around her legs. Her hair flowed down her back. Her face was calm, beautiful, merciless. You used my bird, she said. Ryu's hand shook around the gun. I was loyal to the structure. No, Zaraya said. You were loyal to payment. Min-jae stood beside her, his expression carved from shadow. Ryu's gaze darted to him. Your grandfather survived. Old wars. Min-jae moved faster than the sentence. 332. He crossed the distance and struck Ryu hard enough to send him to the floor. The gun skittered away. Adrian's man kicked it aside. Ryu groaned, trying to rise, but Min-jae grabbed him by the collar and dragged him upright. Zaraya watched. This was his revenge too. She had promised him that. Min-jae's voice was low, almost calm. You cut the brakes on the second car. Ryu coughed blood. I was ordered you moved the route. Ryu's breathing broke. You paid the driver. Ryu looked toward Zaraya as if she might save him. That was almost funny. Zaraya stepped closer. Do not look at me for mercy. You borrowed my name to spill Kang blood. I didn't know you would come. No, she said. That is why you lived this long. Ryu collapsed to his knees. The warehouse held silence around him. Zaraya looked at Min-jae. Ask him what you need. Min-jae crouched in front of Ryu, his tattooed hand gripping the man's jaw with controlled force. Who gave the final payment? Ryu's eyes rolled toward Zaraya, then back. Han Jae-ryul, 333. Who protected you after? Park's people. Not Park directly. Through Foundation channels? Min-jae's eyes darkened. Zaraya's face remained still. And SEO? She asked. Ryu hesitated. Zaraya smiled. That smile made him respond. She knew enough to stay away. She hears things. She always hears things. She didn't order it. Zaraya's gaze sharpened. But she knew after, yes, there it was. Not guilty enough to kill. Enough to put her in her place later. Chairman Park's circle had protected pieces of the attack. SEO had known enough to stay clean and silent. Director Han had paid. Ryu was executed. Zaraya looked at Min-jae. Anything else? Min-jae's grip tightened on Ryu's jaw. Apologize to my grandfather. Ryu began trembling. I'm sorry. Min-jae's expression did not change. Not to me. Ryu swallowed, blood on his teeth. Chairman King. 334. Zaraya's voice came soft. Too late. Then Min-jae ended him. Clean. Quick. Personal. The warehouse did not erupt. No chaos. No dramatic speech. Just the final correction of a debt that had been allowed to breathe for too long. Ryu's body hit the concrete. The men responsible for helping him followed before dawn. Not all by Min-jae's hand. Some by Zaraya's order. Some after they gave enough information to earn fast deaths instead of slower ones. Director Han-jae Ryle was taken alive long enough to confirm the chain, then delivered into a room where Min-jae asked 3 questions and Zaraya asked 1. Her question was simple. Who thought my symbol could be used without consequence? Director Han gave 2 names. One tied to Chairman Park's private foundation. One buried beneath the shell company that made Camille's eyes sharpen with future work. At 5:58 in the morning, 5 hours after Zaraya gave the order, every confirmed person directly tied to the attack on Kang Dae-hyun was dead. The sponsor network was wounded. The deeper names were marked. The Black Crane Rogue branch was frozen, 335, and Zaraya Blackwood stood outside the warehouse as dawn began breaking over Incheon, her coat moving lightly in the cold wind, her black nails stained with nothing because she had never needed a mess to prove ruthlessness. Min-jae stood beside her. For a while, neither spoke. The sky lightened slowly, gray becoming silver over the industrial horizon. Somewhere nearby, gulls cried over the water. The world looked ordinary in that insulting way mornings often did after violence, as if the sun had no respect for what happened before it arrived. Finally, Min-jae said, You found them in 5 hours? Zaraya looked toward the pale sky. I said I would. You brought me. I said I would. He turned his head toward her. You could have handled it without me, yes. Why didn't you? Zaraya looked at him then. Her face was calm but not distant. Because it was your grandfather. The answer was simple. It reached him anyway. Min-jae's gaze held hers, and for the first time since she had met him, something in his face almost softened. Not enough for anyone else to see. Enough for her. 336. You are not against me, he said quietly. No. You are certain? Zaraya stepped closer, her voice low but unwavering. I called you before moving. I told your family the truth. I brought you to the men who hurt your blood. If I were against you, Mr. Kang, you would not be standing beside me wondering. His eyes darkened. Not anger, heat, respect. Something more dangerous than both. Zaraya, he said, not Miss Blackwood. Zaraya. Her name and his voice felt different under dawn than it had beneath gala lights. She should have corrected him. She did not. Instead, she said, Min-jae. The space between them changed instantly. No titles, no room, no elders watching. No Yura, no gala, no old family whispers. Only the two stand on the edge of an old revenge, surrounded by the consequences of truth. Min-jae took 1 step closer. Slowly. Giving her time to move away if she chose. She did not. His hand lifted, not touching her face, only catching a loose strand of her hair that the wind had blown across her shoulder. He held it for half a second, then let it fall. Such a small thing. Ridiculous, almost. Yet heat slid through the silence more dangerously than if he had grabbed her. You are trouble, he said quietly. Zaraya's mouth curved. You're only realizing that now? No, he said. I'm admitting it. Her smile deepened. Behind them, Adrian made a sound that was somewhere between a sigh and a prayer for patience. Min-jae's gaze flicked over her shoulder. He is going to shoot me one day. Only if I allow it. Comforting, isn't it? 338. For 1 second, Min-jae smiled fully enough for her to see what women like Yura had probably ruined themselves imagining. But he was not smiling for Yura. That was the point. By sunrise, Zaraya and Min-jae returned to the villa. Kang Sun-hee and Kang Dae-hyun arrived not long after, escorted through the front gates with quiet urgency. Mrs. Han received them personally. The house felt different with the Kang elders inside it. Not tense exactly, but weighted by what had happened. Dae-hyun entered with his cane, but his eyes were sharp and dry. Sun He looked first at Min Jae, then at Zaraya. Zaraya gave them the names. All of them. She gave them the files. She gave them proof. Dae-hyun read in silence. When he reached Ryu Suk-min's death confirmation, his fingers tightened once around the paper. Then he closed his eyes. Not grief. Release. When he opened them, he looked at Zaraya. You did what you said. You could have hidden this. Yes, you did not. 339. Sun He stepped forward and took Zaraya's hands in hers. The gesture surprised the room. Even Min Jae looked at it. Sun He's hands were warm, firm, old with life and power. We do not blame you for what was done without your knowledge. Zaraya held her gaze. It was still my symbol. And you corrected it, Sun He said. That is what matters in families like ours. Families like ours. The words were deliberate. Zaraya heard them. So did Min Jae. Dae-hyun looked at her with a grave nod. The Black Crane used your name wrongly. Tonight you reminded them who owns it. Zaraya's expression stayed calm. But inside, something settled. Not forgiveness, authority. The Black Crane was hers again, fully, and everyone who had forgotten would now remember. Later that day, after the villa had quieted and the Kang elders left with files and closure, Seoul began doing what Seoul always did. 340, whispering. Not about the warehouse. Not openly. That story would stay buried where it belonged, under the language of private corrections and old debts settled before dawn. But people felt movement in the underworld. A money handler vanished. 2 enforcement men disappeared. A retired fixer stopped responding. Director Han's office went dark. Ryu Suk-min's warehouse burned from the inside out with no official injuries reported because no official version would ever include the truth. People whispered about Black Crane. People whispered about Kang Min Jae moving before dawn. People whispered that Zaraya Blackwood's convoy had been seen near Incheon. No one knew enough. But enough pieces had begun to exist, and pieces were dangerous when intelligent people collected them. By afternoon, Hanyura tried again. Because foolish women did not learn quickly enough. She arrived at one of Zaraya's public business locations, not Velvet House, which remained locked down, but the fashion property in Gangnam, dressed in pale pink this time, flanked by 2 women who looked far less confident than she did. Stopped there briefly for a design review after showering, changing, and sleeping only 90 minutes. She wore a black tailored dress, heels, and a long coat. Her hair was sleek. Her face showed no exhaustion. Her security was close. Yura entered like she expected the room to bend. It did not. 341. Employees stiffened, recognizing tension before names. Adrian moved first, positioning himself without making a scene. Zaraya stood near a display of dark silk evening wear, reviewing fabric samples with the manager. Yura's voice rang lightly through the boutique. Miss Blackwood? Zaraya did not turn immediately. That alone made Yura's face tighten. When Zaraya finally looked at her, the height difference was unmistakable. Zaraya stood taller. People are saying strange things? People usually do when they lack facts? Yura stepped closer, but Adrian moved half a step, and she stopped immediately. Zaraya noticed. So did everyone else. Yura's cheeks warmed. Are you always surrounded by guards? Yes. 342. Scared? Zaraya laughed softly. The sound humiliated Yura more than anger would have. No, Zaraya said. Valuable. One of Yura's friends looked down. Zaraya took a slow step closer, and despite herself, Yura leaned back. Zaraya saw the movement, and let her smile grow by the smallest degree. You keep coming to me, Zaraya said softly. At dinners, through posts, outside companies. Now inside my boutique, I'm not afraid of you. Zaraya's eyes moved over her face. Calm, dark, merciless. You say that every time your body proves otherwise? Yura went still. The boutique became silent. Zaraya lowered her voice, but the words carried enough for everyone near to hear. If you want to embarrass me, you will need more than jealousy, and a pretty dress. Yura's throat worked. You think you're above me? No, Zaraya said. I know I am. The sentence landed like glass shattering. Yura's face turned red. Zaraya continued, softly, almost kindly, which made it worse. Your family has money. Mine has reached. Your family has invitations. I have doors. Your family has a reputation. I have consequences. Do not keep confusing us. 343. Yura looked around, realizing too many people had heard. Again, another failed attempt. Another public wound. Zaraya leaned slightly closer. Go home before you make me bored. Yura's eyes filled with fury, but fear sat beneath it now. Not enough to stop her forever. Enough to make her leave today. She turned sharply and walked out with her friends trailing behind. Adrian watched her go. She is remarkably committed to humiliation. Zariah picked up the fabric sample again. Some women mistake pain for progress. The manager, who had been frozen nearby, whispered, "Should we call security?" Zariah smiled faintly. "Security is already here." Adrian looked pleased. By evening, the story had traveled. Not the exact words, perhaps. Stories always dress themselves differently depending on who carried them. But the shape remained. Yunna confronted Zariah Blackwood again and left pale. Zariah did not shout, did not threaten loudly, did not touch her. She only spoke, and Yunna folded. People began putting pieces together. The way Yunna kept trying, the way Zariah won effortlessly, the way Kang Min-jae had looked at Zariah at the gala, 344, the way King elders had welcomed her, the way men connected to old underworld roots disappeared before dawn, the way Blackwood power seemed to move in places official wealth did not explain. No one said the words yet. Most ruthless mafia boss, head of Black Crane, the woman behind the symbol. No one said it openly, but some started thinking about it. That was enough. At night, Zariah returned to her villa and found Min-jae waiting in the garden room. He had not asked to come. Mrs. Han had allowed him in. Adrian looked deeply offended by both facts. Zariah entered wearing a black silk robe, her hair loose after a shower, her face bare of the day's makeup. She had not expected him, but she was not surprised. That was becoming irritating too. Min-jae stood near the window, looking out at Seoul. When he turned, his gaze moved over her face with quiet attention. No gala lights now. No audience. No blood under dawn. Just the two of them in the softer darkness of her villa, with rain threatening again beyond the glass. "You embarrassed Yunna again," he said. 345. Zariah walked to the tea table. "She visited my boutique. She is foolish, painfully. She was warned. She is bad at listening." Min-jae watched her pour tea. "You could crush her family with one word." "Yes, you haven't. No, why?" "To the cup. She is still useful." "How?" "She shows people what happens when they come for me with too little preparation." His mouth curved faintly. "A lesson, an unpaid one." He stepped closer. "And Park?" Zariah looked up. Min-jae's eyes held hers. "The names from tonight touch him. Not directly enough to kill, no," she said. "Directly enough to embarrass." "An SEO?" 346. She knew enough to be quiet. She often does. At the next event, Zariah said softly, "They both learn, I noticed." Min-jae studied her. "You won't reveal yourself." "No." "Black Crane?" "No." "Why?" Her black nails rested against the teacup. "Because power is more useful when people suspect it before they can prove it." His eyes darkened with approval. "You understand shadows," he said. Zariah's smile was slow. "I own one." The words moved between them, dangerous and intimate in a way neither touched. For a moment, Min-jae said nothing. Then he came closer. Not enough to crowd her. Enough to make the air warm. "You told the truth when lying would have protected you," he said. "I do not need lies for protection." "No," he said quietly. "You do not." 347. His gaze dropped to her mouth. This time, he did not hide it quickly enough. Zariah saw. Her pulse moved once, deep and slow. "Careful," she whispered. Min-jae's eyes returned to hers. "That word belongs to both of us now," he said. "Does it?" "Yes. And if I disagree?" His voice lowered. "Then I'll ask properly." Heat. Immediate. Quiet. Devastating. Zariah stood still as he reached out, not to touch her face, not to claim her, not to cross the line, but to take the teacup from her hand and set it gently on the table beside them. His fingers brushed hers. Barely. It should have meant nothing after a night of blood and truth. It did not mean anything. Zariah looked down at their hands, then back at him. "You are becoming bold, Mr. Kang." 348. "You keep allowing it." "I allow very little." "I know, that was the problem." He did know. He knew that a woman like her did not let people close by accident. He knew that standing here, in her villa, after the truth of Black Crane, after the death of the men who hurt his grandfather, after no accusation had passed between them, meant something had shifted. Not into trust fully, not into love, not yet, but into alignment. A dangerous beginning. Min-jae leaned closer, just enough for his voice to touch the space near her ear without his mouth touching her skin. "Zariah," he said quietly. Her name again. No title, no distance. She did not move away. His hand lifted slowly, stopping near the gold chain at her wrist. "I should be angry. You are—" "Yes?" "Not at me. 349. "No." Her eyes softened by a fraction, though her voice remained steady. "Good." He looked at her then. Really looked at her. And the heat between them sharpened until silence felt like something stretched too tight. "I am about you," she said. The words came out low, not soft. Certain. Min-jae's expression changed, enough for her to see it. "You should not say things like that," he murmured. "Why?" "Because I believe you. Then believe carefully." His mouth curved, but his eyes were darker now. "I'm trying." Zariah lifted her chin. "Try harder?" For one second, they were close enough that a kiss could have happened if either of them surrendered control. Neither did. Not yet. The restraint became its own kind of touch. 350. Then Adrian cleared his throat loudly from the doorway. "I have developed a sudden hatred for tea rooms," he said. Zariah stepped back first, not flustered but amused. Min-jae's gaze did not leave her immediately. Then he looked toward Adrian. "Your timing remains excellent. I practice—" Zariah picked up her tea again, because control deserved ceremony. "Why did you come, Min-jae?" He looked back at her. The use of his name did not pass unnoticed. "I spoke with my grandfather," he said. "He wants you at the next private event. Does he?" "Yes. Park will be there." "SEO too." Zariah smiled. There it was. The next room, the next correction, the next opportunity for people to put more pieces together, while she revealed nothing directly. "Tell your grandfather," she said. "I accept." Min-jae nodded once. "He assumed you would—" Smart man, 351. "He likes you, I know." "He said you remind him of my grandmother." Zariah paused, then laughed softly. "That may be the most dangerous compliment I've received in Korea. It is—" Min-jae moved toward the door, but stopped before leaving. "Zariah, yes?
Look how much money I made.
The black crane answers to you now." Her gaze held his. "It always did," she said softly. "I just forgot how loud." His expression remained calm, but the meaning settled. "Then make them remember," he said. Zariah smiled. They already started. After he left, the villa returned to quiet, but the quiet was no longer peaceful. It was awake. Zariah stood by the window long after Min-jae's car disappeared through the gates. Seoul shimmered beneath the night, half owned, half feared, all of it suddenly threaded with black wings and old knives.